across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, this is a late show with Andre Walker. This is a Friday night, and it's the end of Christmas. I refuse to allow you to believe that I'm going to be absolutely on point during this show. I refuse to allow you to believe that I'm going to put in a massive effort. Do you know what we're all going to do together? We're going to have some fun. We're going to take it casually. We're not going to get all het up and angry. We're just going to talk about the issues of the week in a casual and fun way. You can call me 0344 499 1000. I'm joined for the beginning of the show by George Gilbert, who is a really, really good guy. He was one of the contestants in Big Brother. Don't care about that. Thrown out, which was probably quite good for free speech. Yeah, we love that as well.
Thank you. Speak for yourself, Andre. I'm here to rock and roll, baby.
Are you? Are you feeling chipper today?
Well, it's a new year, new me.
Really? What's your plan?
My resolutions?
Yeah.
I want to hit the gym more, build some muscle. Thing is, before I went on I was on Big Brother, I thought, because I had a feeling I'd get on the show quite a few months in advance, I thought, you want to look dapper when you're on national telly. So I started going to the gym. And I did all right. I had a six-pack, still do if I tense, decent muscles bulging. But then when I was in the house, as I'm vegetarian, and I was the only vegetarian in there, to my surprise. I thought it'd be some vegan lefty.
I would have thought
But no, I was the most woke in there.
Vegetarian, what will they think of next?
I know. But because I was the only vegetarian, a lot of the time, they'd all cook their own sausage casserole or whatever, and I was left in the cold. I had to fend for myself. It was tough. But I ended up making my own vegetarian stuff, and I actually lost half a stone.
Really?
And I've always been a lean bean, and I haven't put it back on.
Do you know my advice? My advice that I learned when I was in student politics, the thing you've got to tell them is say that you are a Muslim and you only eat halal. Can I tell you why? You go to a conference, everyone else is eating sandwiches, and they give you the menu for your local curry house, and you can order yourself a decent curry. So always say you're halal.
Or kosher.
No, kosher's no good because, if I'm being honest with you, there's very few really good Jewish restaurants.
But they love a matzos cracker, and they're all right. I had cheese and biscuits over Christmas.
If I'm telling you...
Jewish cuisine, top notch.
At most conferences, if you say that you're a Muslim, they'll give you the phone number of the local Indian takeaway and a credit card. That is the way forward. Now, look, George, I want to talk to you seriously about this issue, and it is a bit of a serious issue, about this Australian ban on under-16s going onto social media. Now, I'm happy to be persuaded one way or the other, but can I tell you my thinking about it? Right.
Go on.
I strongly disagree with this, online safety bill, where they're trying to bully American companies into, conforming with UK law. And I'll tell you why. Because it's an attack on the rights of Americans in America owning American businesses. Equally, if we're allowed to regulate Facebook, why can't Iran do it? Why can't Iran turn to Zuckerberg and say, we want a list of all gay people in Iran so we can put them in prison? That's our law. So I think that is a mess. What I do believe is this. There is one thing that is very definite in the UK, and that's your phone. Therefore, if we say to young people, we are regulating what your phone does, it seems to me to be A, more enforceable, but B, actually something that I think could potentially be good, because I worry about young people and social media, and I just think that any attempt to restrict it would be a good thing. Now, I don't know if it's worked in Australia, but it seems to me, first of all, the phone is in the UK, so it's better regulating that, and secondly, under-16s, I think, do not benefit from social media. Am I wrong?
Well, social media definitely has its negative points, but let's not forget the great stuff that it brings to society.
Okay, what does it bring?
Well, for instance, with me, I still keep in touch with a lot of school friends.
Yes.
And if it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't have a clue what they're up to these days. And they can see what I'm doing in my life. I can see what they're doing in theirs. It keeps friends connected.
But what about for a 13-year-old?
Well, still, they want to communicate with their friends as much as possible. And in the country today, crime is through the roof. So at least if they're at home and still socialising with friends through games or whatever it may be, at least they're staying sane and, most importantly, safe.
I think what worries me, and it might be that I'm being an old fogey, and I said to you right at the start, George, I'm perfectly happy to be wrong about this, but what about this issue where, you know, when I went to school, I remember bullying, right? And basically, most people who bully other kids are pretty thoughtless. I mean, they're not deliberately going to school every day in order to upset someone. The problem is, when you leave the school, the bullying ends. Now it seems to me with phones, and I mean, smartphones are a force for good, there's no doubt about that. But one disadvantage is you now get it morning, noon and night. And a lot of kids don't understand that they can turn the phone off, and they feel like they can't escape that torrent of abuse. The other thing that worries me about social media is this. You and I are smart enough to know the old phrase by the boy band a-ha, the sun always shines on TV. Look, we aren't really in people's lounges. We're not, you know, this is a fake environment, a TV studio. The things you see on Instagram is not the real life of real people.
Yep.
But it's hard for a teenager to understand that.
Yeah, it's true. Social media does glorify the world that all of us live in, and it just amplifies envy and makes people, it deteriorates our mental health. I think that's a very true statement. But now, Andre, the fact of the matter is the genie's out the bottle. Young people are hooked on social media, so banning it, this blanket ban like that overnight, that's not going to solve anything. All this will cause is young people to go through dodgy websites and VPNs to still speak to their friends and use social media. Just now it's even less regulated and a lot more dangerous. Yeah,
I think there's two bits to that, and I'm interested in your view. So first of all, you kind of said it won't work. My question, and I get that, my question is, if it worked, would you agree with it? Or do you just say, look, it's just a bad idea either way?
If it worked, yes, I'd agree with it, but I'm just not convinced that it will work. It reminds me of, over Christmas, me and my family, I watched one of them 50s Hollywood golden era films, Some Like It Hot, Marilyn Monroe. Great film, actually. I recommend anyone to watch it. But anyway, this film was set in the Prohibition era of America.
Yes.
Where, of course, alcohol was banned overnight. Now, in that very film, and in real life, people didn't just stop drinking alcohol just because the government banned it. There were just these swanky clubs, underground, illegal get-togethers where people would get off their head on booze. It'll be a similar thing here. People will always get social media, just like they'll always get alcohol. Just if you make it illegal, it's going to make it more dangerous for people to do that.
I mean, there's no doubt that Prohibition, America and alcohol is a really good example of how a ban doesn't work. Right?
Exactly,
I mean, there's no doubt about that. What I'd say is, though, most bans that are age restrictions, whether that be going to the pub, whether that be videos in the old days, whether that be computer games, most of those actually hold up at least to some extent. And I think the reason they hold up is because they deny the infrastructure. So as an example, when I was a kid, kids smoked, but actually, you know, fundamentally, it wasn't that easy to do it. And therefore, you know, it made it harder. It reduced the kind of social kudos of doing it, and that reduced smoking. Did the ban on under 16s buying cigarettes stop all under 16s smoking? No, it didn't. Now, it seems to me that if you ban under 16s from social media, what happens is some will go on it, but actually the whole hinterland of them all being on it openly doesn't exist, and that actually makes it less attractive.
Yeah, true. Again, I would like to see, if it worked, I would be for it. How can we make it work, though, Andre? Do we use a digital ID to make people pass the age verification? That could be a method, and maybe that's what the government's got in mind. Oh, it's for your safety. Have a digital ID, and your child will be safe. Your little Timmy won't be in danger of the troubles that social media brings him.
Do you know what I'd actually hope?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'd actually hope? That bans on under 16s were enforced by parents. I know that sounds like the biggest cop-out in the world, but rather than going, let's have government ID, let's have facial recognition, mum and dad go, I've bought this phone and these apps will not work on it, or whatever.
True, but then you hear stories a few months ago where there was a head teacher tried banning phones from schools.
Yes.
And they said, right, parents, get behind it. But that's just untenable, because there will always be families who come from a lout kind of background. They don't really care about rules. Mum probably smokes skunk at home. The dad's out. He's not bothered. He's probably living in Jamaica. Or something.
People who are in favour of phones in schools generally smoke skunk, and dad's out and about doing his thing.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a broad generalisation.
It's all very well pointing the finger. Oh, the parents should be doing more, but actually, it's not going to work.
Well, I think most parents believe that their children, when they go to secondary school, should have a smartphone, and it's actually a good thing to have. I think isn't there in a lot of schools they just collect the phones at the beginning of the day and give them back at the end?
Okay, and what if little Jaden says, "No, you're not having my phone"? What are you going to do as a teacher? What are you going to do? Smack him? You're not allowed to, because he knows that.
I mean,
he's pulling the strings. All these kids know that they've got the upper hand in schools. They can run rings around their teacher.
Yes,
because the teacher is powerless.
Well,
so either we do that kind of thing where no phones in schools, that could help reduce social media usage amongst young people, or if we're going to do that, we need to give teachers more power.
Yeah. I mean, the number one issue is it's not about corporal punishment. The number one issue, it seems to me, that's with state schools is that you basically can't expel anyone. And so ultimately, the biggest punishment, now, assuming we all agree that teachers should not be hitting children, assuming we all agree on that, and I think we probably all do.
Well, I do to a degree.
The only thing you've got left is to expel them. And if you ban expulsion, then nothing happens.
True, but I think if the child is playing up, then you must discipline that child by any means necessary. Of course, you don't want a teacher discriminating against one pupil just because they play up all the time, or maybe they're of a religious background or ethnic background that the teacher doesn't like for whatever reason. But I do think we need more laws and rules in place in wider society and schools to discipline our people, because nobody's following law and order anymore.
Well, I think in general people don't understand the value of listening to somebody. So, as an example, people think that I'm the boss of this show. I'm not. There's a producer who effectively.
No, I'm the boss of this show.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a producer who's kind of my boss. It's a bit weird, but when he says, "I think you should do this," you know what I say? I say, "Thank you for advice. I'll do it." Right, not, I'm very angry and upset or whatever, because at the end of the day, he's trying to make the show work, therefore, why not?
But I think you're of a generation where most people did listen to their elders and take on advice because they've got more wisdom than yourself. But my generation, and certainly younger people than me, I'm 23, if there's people younger than me than that, I don't think that respect is still there. Nobody's that dignified to look up to their parents or teachers and respect them.
You are admirable in the things that you've said and done. I get that. But the reality is you've grown up in a world that doesn't value hard work, that doesn't value, doing the right thing, that doesn't value effort, that thinks that what we should all do is be some fly-by-night and go off to Dubai and rob somebody and make. When you turn around and say, I really want to get a decent partner, I really want to strive for this, I really want to do that, I just feel like the whole world is against you and disagrees with you. And I still don't understand how you have managed to look at the world you were brought up in and successfully conclude that's the right thing to do.
I don't know, I'm quite an old soul at heart. But I think if we are to reintroduce these attitudes that maybe your generation or people older than yourself have lived by, we need to reinstall applauding people on merit, not any DEI rubbish.
Yes.
You can't give someone a promotion for being that religion or that ethnicity or being a woman or being disabled. No, you get the job if you are the best person for the job.
Exactly.
Man, woman, black, white, I don't care. We don't live in a racist society now, so we don't need these quotas to supervise us into giving everybody a fair chance. I think that's a given now. Yes. And I know people will say, oh, you're a straight white man. It's easy for you to say that, but if anything, I'd argue white men are suffering more from these DEI things, and it's us that are paying the price for whoever it is who's of a minority to make their own way.
Somebody's going to turn to you and go, listen, George, you can't have this job because lots of white people are rich. And you go, yeah, but I'm not one of them.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Just to be clear, the fact that the king is white is of no practical benefit to me if I don't get this job. And I think that is really, really disgusting.
I know, yeah. But that's the world we live in now. And I think with voices like ours, keep raising awareness to these issues. That's how we break down how society is right now and how troubled the world is that we live in today.
Now, I have to say to you, as I said earlier, I am not the boss of this show. I have a producer that tells me what to do. With that in mind, George, let's discuss the following story. China has put taxes on condoms in order to increase its population. George, do you have any thoughts on Chinese condom tax? just anything you want.
Well, I was going to go China later this year, but after hearing that, nah, I'm keeping my money. Nah. No, as someone who, I'm a voluntary celibate, as it stands, I'm probably the worst person to ask about
Why
this.
are you?
Why am I
a voluntary celibate? You know, lots of people won't understand.
Well, do you know, it's funny, I'm seeing a lot of young people pretty much the same age as me. Have you heard of, I think it's called that Shirley guy who blew the whistle on the Somali daycare units in America, in Minnesota?
Yeah, I kind of know who you mean, yeah.
He's 23 and he's a virgin. He doesn't want to waste his time in romantic endeavours. There's Nick Fuentes. He's a prominent voice in Republican politics over in the States. He's 27, another virgin. And I'm seeing a lot of young people, my sort of age, who are trying to take life seriously, trying to make their own way in this world and get somewhere with their career. We're seeing romantic relationships trying to derail us. Because if I go and get a girlfriend, that's a lot of time I've got to spend. Maybe 2, 3, 4 times a week I'm spending with her. That's, if I go on dates, you can easily spend 100 quid in a restaurant. To a young person like myself, that's a lot of money.
But isn't
all this time, money and effort, it's down the drain.
But isn't your real rebuke something that it is definitely unfashionable to admit, but I think is true? Drunken, random sex is crap. You know, one night stand with some bird you've met and she's half cut and you're drunk too. Actually, isn't that great? And you know, so many young men your age go out every weekend because they've been conditioned to believe that that is a brilliant night out. I'm just not convinced.
Well, I think it's part of the swinging 60s. The children of that era, they had the pill. They didn't need to worry about the consequences of hookup culture. So, yeah, I think it's just got out of hand, and they say history repeats itself. I think we are reverting back to an era where people were more reserved and sexually less inclined. Is that a good or bad thing? I think it's a good thing, because if people are too focused on keeping up with the Joneses, oh, I've got to lose my virginity before I'm 16, or, you know, just try and impress everyone on this.
I totally look. I'm 1,000 years old compared to you, but I totally understand the whole comment that says, first of all, I'm too young to settle down. Secondly, I'm not interested in casual sex, and thirdly, you know, I want a decent bird. You know, before
exactly. There's none left.
Yeah, well,
trouble.
I don't want to just randomly go out and get some drunk. Well, let's not go.
Well, I'm trying to become the next Dalai Lama, actually. So
really,
no, good though, or a priest, or the Pope. Not that I'm
Dalai
Catholic.
Lama.
That's one of the requirements, isn't it? But also, I think a lot of young men are so embarrassed to say that they're virgins. It takes people. I don't want to sit here and call myself brave, but it takes brave people to say, no, it's all right to have that frame of mind. It's not a requirement
because it doesn't
as a young person to go and sleep with everyone.
To most young people, it doesn't feel like a choice.
Yeah.
It feels like if you have not had sex, you are a loser. That's it.
Yeah.
And you watch TV shows and it's all about saying, I definitely want to do this. Now, at the end of the day, it's not true that you don't want to have sex, but you want to find someone decent. And I think...
Yeah, I'm not averse to...
Yeah, you're not against it, I understand that.
I don't mind having sex before marriage, but you have to have sex with someone you're happy with marrying. Yes. That's my stance.
How many women have thrown themselves at you after Big Brother? No, seriously, does it happen?
Well, I had over 1,000 direct messages.
Really?
Mostly just supportive. They're not all trying to sleep with me. But it's just people.
But even if it was like
nice.
10%, that's still 100.
Yeah, well,
that's still not bad.
I can't really give you a percentage, but yeah, a couple of dozen at least. And I could lean into it, and I'm actually quite fascinated by these people. Where if I come and meet you, would you sleep with me? And I just think,
sorry,
who are these
we
people?
cut out a little bit of that there because of the language, but just to say that people direct message you asking about your masturbation fantasies, which is just
people.
Who sends that?
I know.
Dad, stop it.
I'm intrigued. Yeah, it's your burner account, isn't it? No, I'm intrigued to see who these people are in real life. Are they catfish? Are they like maybe an old bloke in his dirty old dog in his 60s trying to talk to a young person? I don't know, it could be. But I think a lot of them are just weirdos who are quite keen
Hang
to know
on a second, right? Let's just live in the real world, right? We all go, I'm not interested in celebrities. Humans love celebrity, just can't help themselves. Yeah. Right. If I walk down the street and I see someone famous, I think, I don't care, but secretly I do. Yeah. Right. So when somebody finds you on Instagram, they go, come on, don't send a message. And then a couple of Smirnoff Ices and a couple of glasses of wine, and she goes to herself, oh, go on, it can't hurt. Yeah. And then what she does is, had she actually sent you a message sober, it would have been fine. But actually now what she's done, she sent you the message anyway, and now she's disgraced herself with some absolutely horrendous message.
Yeah. Well, to take it back to the old Australian social media ban, if it's going to protect me from messages like that, I'm in favour of it.
I mean, I'll tell you one thing that I do find unsettling, and I don't know. Look, a lot of the women that work here get messages that actually are quite unsettling to me. And I always think that messages to a female that are kind of quite sexual or whatever is actually quite a worrying thing. But a lot of these girls laugh them off. I mean, we had one woman who used to read them out on air. I mean, she'd read out like the more tame ones. But people will send all sorts of messages to people. Anyway, look, it's interesting what weird stuff gets sent to George. We will talk more about it, but we are over on the break. We'll be back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is a late show and it is Friday night, and I've got to be honest with you, I'm with George Gilbert, former Big Brother contestant. George, I wanted to say to you something that would have been a high road to danger. I wanted to say, what's the weirdest thing you've ever received on social media? But then I thought to myself, anything you read out is going to be dumped by the gallery. Anything of any interest, you're going to go, can't say that, can't say that, can't say that.
Well, it's not just the weird messages. As I say, I had about 1,000 direct messages on Instagram, X, TikTok, all of them. I'm on them all. And I'd say 95%, so 19 in 20, give or take, were positive. Just people showing their support.
Yeah.
But you get some weird ones and you get some nasty ones. Oh, someone needs to pull a Charlie Kirk on you. It's like, come on. But that's the world you live in. If you're willing to put your head above the parapet, be it on the radio, on telly, on a reality show, you've got to expect the fact.
When I threw Mizzy out of the studio, I got hundreds of death threats. And
who's Mizzy?
Basically, he was a social media guy. I should bring him on the show again, actually. He was a social media guy who had caused all sorts of trouble going into people's houses and all this sort of thing. And, people had eviscerated him. I threw him out of the studio for being disrespectful. But in that moment, we had a moment, and he thought, I could see him thinking, nobody has ever told me not to do something before, apart from you. And we'd become quite good mates, and everybody thought I was being racist and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I contacted him afterwards, and I said, listen, Mark Zuckerberg's getting paid, right? All of these people are making money off your content. How much money have you made? He said, nothing. I said, well, you're Phil then, right? So we've kind of become mates and all that sort of thing. But when I threw him out of the studio, the number of death threats I got, and do you know what the problem is with them? I just don't care. I'm just not.
You can't, because if you start reading, I don't even read the comments on my social media now, because there's always these little basement-dwelling idiots sitting at home. I look at their profile picture, they're always some ugly, nasty piece of work. I wouldn't touch them with a barge pole, Andre. So why do I care? Why should I value what they got to say about me? I don't.
But also, I see it slightly differently to that, and I'll tell you why. Look, you and I are here to entertain people. There are tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people watching and listening. They're going to judge us, right? Now, there's people who go on Twitter or whatever who go, I turn off when Andre Walker comes on, I hate him. Now, you've got to remember something. They're not saying, I personally have a problem with this guy. They're saying, I don't like his shows, therefore I turn them off. Now, obviously, I'd rather people liked my shows than disliked them. But I don't see it as a judgment on my character. I see it purely as they don't like my show because whatever.
Yeah. Well, in order to make an omelette, you've got to break a few eggs. You're not going to please everyone.
No, absolutely.
So it's water off a duck's back. And that's how you've got to be.
And look, and me and Petri, can I tell you, there are some people who get in touch and go, oh my God, I hate Petri, I wish you did her shows. And there are people who contact Petri going, oh my God, I hate Andre Walker, why don't you just get rid of him? And look, and the reason is because some people like her, some people like me, and the reason is we do things differently. That's it. But the other thing is when somebody goes, if I ever see you, I'll thump you, they don't really mean it.
Yeah. I tell you what, Andre, for all the many hateful messages I've received since going on Big Brother, not once have I had a negative face-to-face interaction.
No.
Every time someone notices me, I normally go out wearing a hat because when I got my hair down, I'm very noticeable. It's a very distinctive haircut I've got. Red, curly, think angry kid.
Yeah.
So when I'm, be it on the tube or just strolling down Oxford Street, people do tend to come up to me, even if I'm wearing a hat, and say, oh, were you the guy from Big Brother? And I go, yeah, did you love me or hate me? I loved you, George, every time. So I think the people that do hate me on direct message, they're keyboard warriors.
My favourite is the kind of people who come up to me, right? They just go, I'm really sorry, don't mean to bother you, but I quite liked your show, but can I say hello? And you think, oh, they're really nice, actually, because obviously not being one direction, people don't mob you. They kind of say, oh, really sorry, didn't mean to bother you. And I always think that's quite nice. My funniest interaction with anyone ever was when I worked for Breitbart. I was persuaded to do a hit piece on this guy. I've got to be honest with you, it's not my bag to have a go at somebody. I'm happy to slag him off politically, but the personal, he's done this, he's done that, I don't like it.
And not their appearances either. I don't like when people do that.
I was forced to do it. Anyway, the guy that I'd had a go at, and to be fair, I didn't actually want to have a go at him. He walked up to me and he said, I know who you are. Well, okay. He went, I hate you. Well, all right. He went, if I ever see you in the National Liberal Club, I'm going to thump you. And I went, what if you see me somewhere else? And he went, no, just the National Liberal Club. And I went, well, that raises more questions than it answers. Like, why specifically in this one venue? And he said, you watch. If I see you there, I'll punch. And he walked off. I thought, that's really bizarre.
Did you ever go there in the end?
Well, I mean, I did, but I thought, but what if he sees me like next door, right? Suddenly he doesn't, and he was very clear that he would only punch me in that specific location. I thought,
did he say why? Like what it was you'd said?
Look, I'll tell you what I took from that. That presumably he didn't like me going into that particular place where he was a member, and therefore would attempt to throw. That's all I could take away from it.
They're childish, aren't they? It reminds me of that Churchill quote: "If you're not hated by anyone, it means you've never stood for anything." So if people hate you, that means you've been bold and brave enough to give your opinion, please or offend, and yes, like I said, you made an omelette.
I mean, I don't think it's really hate, though, is it? People just disagree with you. Anyway, I want to ask you this. Look, I don't think this is going to come as a big surprise, but the poorest households in Britain have become poorer under Labour, despite Keir Starmer's promise to the contrary.
You don't say.
Spare cash left over after bills and essential spending for least affluent households has shrunk by 2.1%. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but for every 50 quid you previously had, you now have 49. Now, I mean, that is going to be a big thing.
Yeah.
Look, I don't care what anyone says. There are people watching and listening who copper up, for dinner, who can't afford the heating, who can't get kids their shoes for school. I really worry about it.
Exactly. And what gets me is people say, the Labour government need more time. They're trying to steer the ship in the right direction. It's just their actions need to stand the test of time to get put into practice to make the working man's life even better. But when you get people like Rachel Reeves tweeting, the FTSE 100's hit 10,000 points for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Tweeted that today. But what she doesn't actually let us know is that there's no substance to this claim, because they reckon 75% of the FTSE 100's revenue, the revenue of the companies in the FTSE 100, 75% of it comes from overseas. So if the FTSE 100's doing well, that doesn't actually mean the British economy is doing well.
I mean, the reality is, I listen to this all the time, where people go, this metric, that metric, whatever. I am telling you, I see people getting poorer. Now, you can say all day, this statistic, that statistic, whatever statistic. And I'll tell you the thing that really worries me more than anything, George. Nobody seems to be rich. Even people earning 100,000 a year still don't seem to be living it up. And I just worry that in this country, nobody is doing well. And I just think it's a nightmare. And I just think to myself, when somebody earning 150 grand is not particularly rich, what do you have to earn in order to be completely comfortable and safe?
But you say that a lot of the richest people in this world hide it well. Like Elon Musk, you don't see him wearing Moncler coats or Stone Island hats.
I mean, he does have 2 private jets, right? I mean, that is...
That aside. No, but I'm saying a lot of the millionaires, even in London, you'd walk past them and think they're just the average Joe.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the poorer people that prance around in their designer gear.
But remember, the concept of bling is that because you don't have financial security, you wear stuff that's expensive in order to give yourself some kudos. That's the whole concept.
Well, they reckon the likes of Louis Vuitton make more money out of poor people than rich people. Yeah. Because it's people trying to keep up with the hedonist treadmill.
Well, I said this last night. I mean, I was watching a documentary about how first-class lounges in airports have become more popular as a result of poverty. What the hell's that? And people now, young people, can't buy a house, can't get financial security, can't put money aside for their pension. And so actually, given they can't do any of that, they spend it on things that make them feel successful, like VIP lounges at airports. It's a function of poverty.
Even though it seems like everyone is poor, and I'd agree with you, everyone seems quite hard up right now, but the money is still out there.
Oh, yeah.
It's just you've got to find it. I know a lot of the rich people and the big businesses have moved abroad, but we live in a global society now, Andre. The money is still there, and it's easier today to get rich than ever before in history. I'm a firm believer in that, because there's the internet. Most money is made through e-commerce, and everyone's got access to the internet.
But we've never lived in a society, I don't think, where the government has set out to make it harder for you to be successful. I get the government getting it wrong. I get the fact, Thatcher shutting the mines was damaging to community, all this sort of stuff. But what it seems to me is we are now a country of government inspectors whose only joy in life is making it hard for everybody else. And you're sitting here, and look, at the end of the day, you're putting a brave face on it, but in terms of your ability to make money, you've been eviscerated by this country. And you're putting a brave face on it, but you've struggled.
It's true. As I was on it a few weeks ago, wasn't I, where I said I wanted to lay low after going on the reality show. I got a cleaning job, and I ended up losing that cleaning job because of the image I was portrayed as on Big Brother. Yeah. And that's no offence to any cleaners out there, but that's a very bottom of the barrel menial job. Cleaner. You don't need your head screwed on to be a cleaner, for Christ's sakes. But I was sacked. Two
Yes.
shifts in, I lost my job. So it is the job's I've got many friends who work as TV extras because I used to do that, and that's a very gig economy job.
Yeah.
It's
It's
one
actually
job and then
not
that's that.
badly paid, is it?
Yeah, oh, you can make 400 or 500 quid a day.
Yeah.
On the big Disney ones. And yeah, in Pinewood Studios, they're booked for years ahead because there are so many American companies that want to make their films here. And that's great. But if those jobs, if you experience a thin patch with those jobs, there is nothing out there unless you want to work at maybe a warehouse or something.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind, but it's not really a career, is it, for a lot of people? So it's difficult to get a good career under your belt these days, and the government need to do something about it.
I think the problem is, and we're going to go to a break now, I think the problem with zero-hour contracts, when I was on a zero-hour contract in Salford, yes, they would send me home when they had no work, but they allowed me to leave if I had other things to do, specifically going to university. I think if it goes both ways, it's good. What we often see with zero-hour contracts is the employer benefits, but the employee does not benefit in the same way. We're going to be back just a couple of moments with George Gilbert talking all about the big issues of the day.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, this is The Late Show with Andre Walker. We're joined in the studio now by somebody who hasn't got asbestosis. It's Barmy Brunch. He has got a hat on, which is basically a breakfast. So your eyes are eggs, your mouth is a sausage, your ears are bacon, and most of you are baked beans. Now, I just want to explain one thing, that you ran in the Monster Raven Looting Party against Jacob Rees-Mogg. That thing that you were is something you personally manufactured. So it's not like you walked into a shop and went, oh, sod it, I'll have that. You went, I'm setting out to look like this.
I think the police would call it premeditated.
Yes. Okay. Now, you come in and, I mean, you're our dubious expert, aren't you? I'll tell you the worst night. What was it that night?
When my car broke down and I came from home. Was that?
No, the worst night was when Donald Trump got shot. Right. And I'm in the studio. Right. We all know what's going to happen. Right. If Donald Trump had died, every executive at this company and the entire Murdoch family were going to turn on. And we were going to have a man with eggs for eyes and a sausage for a mouth talking about the death of the previous American president. Right. That would have been the end. Yeah. That would have been the end. That would have been the end. What the hell? Like, who is that? What? I mean, I think it's fair to say they would have considered that to be a little disrespectful.
Yeah, good that it was just blood on his ear, so I could sort of blend in slightly.
Luckily, it was only a flesh wound.
I thought the sausage was hairy then, but is that your moustache?
That's probably the moustache coming through. It's probably that. That's a 3D model there. You're getting the full 3D experience, of course, everyone at home.
So look, I call you Beanhead. I mean, I've never got the point of all this. I think you're quite a nice bloke, but I mean, I really do think, I just think it makes a mockery of the whole thing.
Every month.
But always remember, can I tell you something? I am easily led. Oh, lest we forget, impersonate Hulk Hogan by ripping your shirt off. Oh, lest we forget that complaint. Put a cake in Pete Barnes' face, he'll find it funny. That was an HR complaint, right? Why didn't you ride Viscount Moncton like a horse? Oh, that was about 3 weeks of letters, wasn't it? Right? Oh, every time. And do you know what he does? Do you know what he does behind the camera? I'll speak to Andre about it. He doesn't admit it was him. He never tells them. Man with Beanhead on the night the American president is virtually assassinated. I'll speak to Andre. I was personally appalled. Oh, it's just dreadful. Dreadful. That's what happens. That's what happens. You know, every time I feel like, have you ever seen that film, that TV show, Extras?
Yeah.
You know, with Ricky Gervais.
Yeah,
he goes,
yeah.
why do I get talked into this? And every criticism I ever have is something that I actually didn't want to do. Do you want to
Are you
ride?
having a laugh? Is he having a laugh?
Do you want to ride Viscount Moncton like a horse? Not especially. And then when the complaints flood in, it's all my fault. Anyway, with that in mind, Beanhead, have you got any?
I was going to say 2026, it's got to be the year to out him. It's got to be the year where you call him out and you say, no more. No more of this.
I can't. I mean, I can't help myself. He just goes, do that. And I just think, don't. And then I go, yeah, all right, fair enough.
Yeah.
So you're talking about New Year's resolutions.
Yes.
What are yours?
Well, I've just come back from Scotland, so I drove, longer than needed, but I drove, well, actually, the necessary distance.
What, you wanted to go to Newcastle? You want to go
Went
to
a bit
Newcastle?
further.
Yeah.
Mr.
So,
Turlin.
ended up there for New Year. Now, the Hogmanay itself, should we go there first?
Is it overrated?
It's overrated and a rip-off. I
Right,
paid
okay.
30, I was with my partner, 30 quid each, just
Okay.
to stand in the cold and watch some fireworks, which we could have seen better from home or from another vantage point.
Okay.
That you don't pay in London. Well, no, you pay in
You
London.
do
but
pay, yeah.
You do now pay.
If you're a
don't you?
non-London resident, it's £40 or 55
No.
quid to see bloody fireworks.
Oh, so that's worse. Okay, so
and
I
they've
paid
boarded
30.
off Primrose Hill to stop any people watching
Have
it.
they done
free of
that
charge. I know,
now?
it's mental. Sadiq Khan for you.
There we go. So there's, well, anyway, it was a con in Edinburgh, I thought.
So you literally went to watch the Edinburgh fireworks?
Did the fireworks, but then on the 1st, and this is what I'm here to talk about, they've got this weird New Year tradition, the Looney Duke. You ever
Okay.
heard of that? Monster Raving Looney did the Looney Duke, which is you plunge into cold water midday on the 1st of January.
Well, they do that Dover dip, don't they? But the
Dover
problem is,
dip.
40 people go into the water and 300 come out. You know, whoa, where did them lot come from? Don't speak a word of the Queen's, do they? Right? So you jumped in water in Scotland.
Yes, did that, and that is one of the traditions that the Scots have, and it's so it's all across the Firth bit, and then there's different pockets in bits of Scotland, just freezing cold water. As long as you're in by midday, then that counts.
I was
as
doing
your
a bit
Duke.
of research on Scottish New Year's traditions. Did you get up to any first footing? Ever
Yeah,
heard of that
first
one?
footing. That's I can't do.
Yeah.
I'm not very well coordinated, but yeah.
Well, it's where you come to a neighbour or a friend's house with a gift at the stroke of midnight to
Yeah.
see. It could be a silver coin back in the day for wealth, or coal. for
Probably
wood.
not in Scotland. They probably would have gone for the more cheap option.
not in this economy
Not a silver
anyway.
coin, right? You'd have a 2p.
But Andre, you won't like to hear this because, much like me, as a redhead, redheads and blondes weren't allowed to be first footers because back in the day we were Vikings and we'd come and rape, pillage, and murder your family.
No, I'm sorry.
So they wanted dark
I'm
hair,
sorry. I'm sorry. There's no
normal-looking
rape
people.
and pillaging at Hogmanay, right? No, don't
No,
get
this is
that.
first footing.
Don't.
Oh, I thought first footing was a dance.
No, it's
No,
not. It's going
it's-
into your house.
Oh, it is going into your house. But footing is something about. No, that's the
two-stepping.
Ceilidh. No, what's the
I mean,
one that
what
they
makes me
dance?
laugh about
I
this?
think.
We brought Beanhead on to talk about traditions of
talking
New
about
Year.
rape.
He doesn't know what any of them are. He's got absolutely no idea. All he can tell us is that Hogmanay's rubbish. He doesn't know. He jumped in some water. Well, that's fast. That'll fill 15 minutes. How was the water? Cold. Well, it's Scotland, right? I mean, what more do you want? At least you got away from the midges, right?
You know,
What?
in Iceland, you get them outdoor, really warm ponds.
Yeah.
Do you get them in Scotland? 'Cause
Yeah,
that's
the
similar.
lochs. The lochs.
Yeah,
are out
do
there.
you-
Loch. The locks.
I want to go in one.
Right.
Maybe that's a resolution.
Thermo-heated, volcanic heated geysers of Iceland are not similar to locks in Scotland. Can we just be clear? One is a lake in a cold country. The other is boiling water coming into contact. Those geysers of Iceland are very similar to locks in Scotland. In what way? They both contain water. I mean, that's the only similarity.
Both of H2O. That's it.
They both got water in them. Great.
You could cook your beans in them.
That's true. There we go. I'm sure they've done it.
So eco-friendly. Ed Miliband will love that.
So I want to ask you, this year there's going to be elections. If Keir Starmer doesn't have his way, will you be running for anything?
I will be running. That's on the cards. Well, now this is the problem, because the one I ran against, right, there's complications there. And every time I come on, I talk around the subject, because, of course, the current incumbent, let's just say there are complications with his current residency.
Right.
And leave it at that.
Okay.
So that's that one.
Fighting
so
talk.
I've got my eye, and that will be with Monster Raving Looney. But if there's a by-election somewhere else, I'm actually thinking of founding my own party.
Okay.
There's an option. The Barmy Brunch National Party.
Can I ask you,
BBNP.
why are you wasting your time? You're never
It's
going to
not.
win. You've got to pay your deposit, which you won't get back, like you didn't last time. What's the point?
Well, actually, I came on talkTV. Andre gave me 40 quid, so I got half of that.
That's another easily led. Give him some money. That never
took it out.
Don't worry, you can expense it. That's never
A fool
happened.
and his money are soon parted. You fool.
I think what you should do you remember in Northern Ireland, you won't remember, but years ago, where every single Northern Irish MP resigned, and then somebody in the constituency changed their name to the name of the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, and they all ran against, what was it, Peter Walker or whatever. Right, I think you should run under the name Keir Starmer. Change your name by deed poll.
Well, I've looked at that, but apparently it comes down as like misleading. It's actually I don't know how they did that. It must be a different law now.
Well, okay, just call yourself two-tier Keir. I mean, everyone will know, right?
Change it because deception.
karma.
I mean, it would be great though, wouldn't it, if actually you decided, let's found a party that advocates for stuff and see how well it does. The let's abolish jury and elections party, and just see how many votes you get. Or
Lammy Dodger.
Yeah. Unlimited migration from the third world party. Right. If you vote for me, I will let everyone in. Like, I don't know.
Scrap the winter fuel allowance, but don't. Party.
Yeah. Let's have the Chinese spy centre and build it quick party. Or send David Lammy around the world because he's a real winner party.
Forget New Year's resolutions then. Those are the top party names of 2026. Surely.
By the way, do you know what I always do in elections? So I don't normally vote because I'm normally out and about. I like to vote in person. But this is my trick, and it's the best trick of them all. Right. If you get your ballot paper and you spoil it, what happens is the returning officer gets all the election candidates and all of their agents and goes, I'm proposing to disqualify the following ballots. And he shows them all every ballot.
Yes.
This is very much an opportunity to write something that they're all going to read, which is normally, I write, nobody knows, but X candidate is, and then give some dastardly details about him. Right, and they all go, look at that. Right, it's horrendous. Once I wrote, nobody knows, but the Conservative candidate is widely known as Beakface. I saw him on the TV, he went wild. But yeah, you can write something, send a message.
A little message down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, she won't be running. I could say, I'm thinking of running against. Oh, well, who knows?
What's the goal?
Toss the coin. Well, the goal is just promoting democracy and saying, let's use your vote. Because did you vote in the last election?
I did.
Who did you vote for?
I voted for Reform, but they were doomed. They weren't going to win in my constituency.
What's your constituency?
They're actually projected to win now. Braintree in Essex.
They'll win that.
So
who's Braintree at the moment? It's
What? Who's our candidate?
Yeah,
well, it was Richard Thompson.
No, but
he was booted out of the party.
And who's the MP now
don't
in
agree with
Braintree?
it.
It's
Well, the chair they haven't selected candidates, but
but the current MP in Braintree.
James Cleverly.
James Cleverly, I knew.
I like him actually.
You like him?
I don't know. Well,
In next door to my village, a place called Wethersfield, there's an RAF base where they have put asylum seekers who now outnumber Wethersfield residents.
I'm not saying he's done
almost 2 to
well.
1.
I'm saying he's quite a nice
In
bloke.
Wethersfield, there's 700 people. In RAF Wethersfield, there's 1,200 asylum seekers. That's not fair. We don't like James Cleverly for that. And I've written to him. You never hear anything back because he's always in London. He doesn't give monkeys about us in Essex. He's just another career politician. Don't like the geezer.
Is he
I think he's got some house there because he's got him minted.
I mean,
but I don't like him one bit. Why do you like him, Andre?
No, I just personally like him. I mean, I know he's crap.
Well, when I was a parish councillor of Finchamfield...
Look, I'm not defending politically.
Happy New Year.
I just have a beer with him every now and again. Right?
Didn't like him one bit. And he never addresses his constituencies' issues. And it really riles me up because our villages aren't safe now. We live in rural Essex. It's a proper, quaint little picturesque village, the most painted village in England, some say, and we've got gangs of these illegal immigrants, black hoodies, shouting in their language, intimidating our elderly residents, and me as a parish councillor, I was not happy. Do you think I got a word in edgeways with James Cleverly and his team?
I just say I like a beer with him every now and again.
Oh, I can't stand the man.
Right, what we're going to have to do is sedate George. Right, literally, all I'm saying about Cleverly is I occasionally have a pint with the man. That's it. I didn't know anything about his air bases full of migrants or hooded youths marauding around attacking parish councillors, but we're going to talk more about that. Well, hopefully not next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is The Late Show with Andre Walker, Barmy Brunch and George Gilbert. And tonight we'll be asking you, Sir James Cleverly, why? You give your thoughts, 0344 499 1000. Yeah, OK, so let's not talk any more about James Cleverly. Barmy Brunch, what are your other New Year's resolutions? Now, bear in mind, this has been at best a perfunctory segment, right? I mean, you're not normally very good, but tonight you've been even worse.
Below par.
Right. So just pull something out, just make it up now.
Fish, sperm, facials. How about that? That is now set to be predicted trend in 2026. Fish, sperm, facial.
Yeah,
what's that food that's fish sperm?
He knows it.
What's that fish sperm food? Oh, that tastes quite nice.
Caviar.
No, the dip. No, whatever that Greek dip is. I went, what's that? And somebody went, I said,
fish sperm.
I'm not touching that. I'm not touching that.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you, baked bean head.
Here we go.
Is that a blackberry ice?
Oh, well, this is the other
Do with
little...
that.
No, it's not. It is a Chinese rip-off of a blackberry.
There's
The reason
on
being, well, you can get all the apps on this one.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is a real challenge to Harry Cole, isn't it? Oh, let's talk about knockoff blackberries. Oh, that's fascinating. Got any other thoughts on anything?
Well, you can't get Uber on a BlackBerry or a related ride-hailing software.
Support.
So you bought a phone on the base you can't use it for Uber.
I've disadvantaged myself to then advantage myself.
Support black taxis. That's
well, there we go, but you could call one on this. So this is the thing. Could you
hail one like the good old days? Nothing wrong with that. Is there, Andre? Do you use Uber?
Yes. No, I've got my own driver. Yeah.
How the other half live, eh?
No, it's great, actually. What I do is build a company. What I did was, I'll tell you this, I deliberately made sure the Ubers were as expensive as possible. I mounted a campaign for 6 months of running up my car bill. Don't worry, they're not watching. And then I went, it'd be much cheaper if I had my own chauffeur-driven BMW 7 Series with a telly in the back. And unbelievably, my boss went, that's an excellent cost saving. What I've done was just ramped up the cost. Remember?
No, I'm a proud black cab driver, black cab user. I think we need to support these traditional emblems of the City of London and other cities in the UK. I think it's beautiful. Americans come here and see the black taxis. They're beautiful.
What is the most
Just like
beautiful?
If I go to New York, it's a nice yellow taxi.
What is the most beautiful thing about London then?
I think the history. I think when I walk around London, it's like walking through a passage of time, like a museum. All of our finest architecture was, in my opinion, built in the Victorian era.
I agree.
Prince Albert, I know he's a German, but he had a real finger on the pulse on how to let the British lion roar again. And we've lost that way. We've lost recapturing anything great about this country. And I think architecture is the best place to start.
But on a serious note, after the Second World War, we desperately wanted to say that everything that was in the past was terrible, and now what we need is brutalism, modernism, all that sort of thing.
Minimalism.
You know, look, genuinely, Erno Goldfinger, who designed Trellick and Balfon, was such an awful architect that Ian Fleming named a Bond villain after him. I mean, how bad do you have to be if somebody goes, I hate your architecture so much that I'm going to name a bad guy after you? Erno Goldfinger, all of his stuff should just be knocked down. It's horrendous.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't really watch many films, so I can't comment on the old Bond franchise. But no, London's close to my heart. I think it's a bloody brilliant city. Pardon my French.
Do you?
Yeah, I think it's going for a dire era right now. But I see a light at the end of the tunnel. Keep the faith. Better times are ahead of us. You just got to ride the storm, and hopefully we'll get someone better than Mayor Khan in power, like Ant Middleton.
I think
vote for Middleton.
Is he going to run?
Yeah, he is. He won't win though, because people vote on religious grounds now, and there's not enough people like Ant Middleton to vote for him.
I was laughing because I was thinking Ant McPartlin.
McFarlane! Which one is he?
Well, exactly.
He's the
That's
sober
half
one.
the fun.
He's still drunk
the
for
sober
New
one.
Year's. Yeah, no, Ant Middleton, the old SAS bloke.
I think the only thing I'm going to say, if Ant McPartlin wins as Mayor of London, I would advise Deck not to go out to celebrate. It'll end badly. It'll just end badly. OK, listen, guys, are you going to stay on for the press preview?
I'm happy to.
I hope you will. We'll have a look through
to.
some of the papers. You can get in touch, 0344 499 1000. Now, listen, if you are critical of this show, you're not very happy, I told you, I've been working all week, and it's Friday, and I'm determined to have a bit of fun. And the great thing about having been here is that there's no way of insulting him and actually offending him. So that is a really good piece of news. So 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We'll put your calls through. We'll talk about anything you like. The reason is because we are here to have a little bit of fun. But we are going to do the press preview. That's coming up in a couple of moments. We're going to go through all the front pages. I'll tell you something. Christmas Eve, Pete Barnes was forced to do a press preview, and they'd forgotten there was no press on Christmas Day. So he had to just stand there with nothing. They went, the papers are slow today, aren't they? Yeah, they don't exist. OK, so we will be back.
No news is good news.
Absolutely. We'll be back just in a couple of moments with the press preview. I will see you then.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, this is the press preview. Alex Dyke is going to come on in just a couple of moments. We're getting a text sorted with him. We've still got George Gilbert and we've still got Barmy Brunch. Why don't we look at the first page? Okay, so this is the Daily Express and they're saying get a grip on social care because it is in crisis. Look, I don't know the specifics of the story, but this whole issue of looking after people who are vulnerable, attempting to have some sort of a joined up approach between the NHS and local care providers just doesn't seem to work, does it? The whole thing is a mess.
Yeah. Scrap the thing. Scrap the... I mean, I'm all for scrapping the NHS, actually. Let's go deeper and just...
The NHS?
Yeah, go for that. Oh, you'd go the other way.
No, I think the NHS is overrated. I think it needs a revolution. And I think Nigel Farage is the best candidate to do that job.
What do you think he'll actually do with the NHS, though?
Privatise.
Sell it?
No, I don't
Sell
think
it
he will.
No,
He's been on record and said he wouldn't privatise it. I just think when you've got DEI managers on 60, 70 grand a year, it's getting enough funding. It's just about using that funding wisely and spending the money the right way.
You were talking about this channel, this company spending a load of money on terrestrial channels that we later got rid of and moved solely to digital. One thing that I've noticed in business is this. What will happen is a company will spend a load of money on new projects and then look at what works and what doesn't and cut it all back. And they're constantly doing this sort of shape, you know, the sort of ramp up,
wasteful spending,
get rid of, ramp up, get rid of. And basically they'll go, look, like this company will go, we'll spend X tens of millions on a project. We know a lot of it's a waste of money. And then at the end of that 6-month period, we will know that this bit and that bit works. And we'll keep that and get rid of the rest. That's what they do. What happens in the NHS is every time they come up with a new idea, they spend a load of money on it and keep it forever. There's none of that kind of, well, that bit hasn't worked, let's get rid of it. It just all continues forever. And that is what I think is part of the problem.
Yeah, well, we need to look at foreign healthcare setups. I'm not privy to how they do it in France, for example, but take France as an example. Apparently their healthcare system is second to none.
Oh, it really is.
So, I don't know the ins and outs of what they do that is so great, but why don't we look at what they're doing overseas as close to home as France and take a leaf out of their book?
But the big problem, Barmy Brunch, is this. British people believe that there are only two types of healthcare system, the NHS and America. Which both are dysfunctional for different reasons, right? Also, people believe that if you make a change to the NHS, what will happen is people will die on the streets who can't afford treatment. We have failed to persuade them that there are lots and lots and lots of different systems. I mean, I like the system in Israel where you get your treatment paid for, but there are like 3 competing NHSs, and you just pick whichever one you reckon is the best for your particular treatment. That sounds superb to me.
Yeah, it's weird. We've not got it right. And yet, somehow, there's this group of people that celebrates it in a way that sort of makes it a deity. And that, for me, I've never been convinced by that, because every time I've tried to access it, it's been a bit rubbish.
It's just unmanageable. Yeah. An organisation that size just can't be run. Anyway, Alex Dyke is here. He's a broadcaster, formerly of the BBC. Thank you so much for coming on. Look, this whole idea of the NHS and social care, are you worried about our healthcare system, Alex?
I am. Thank you for having me on tonight, Andre. Yes, I am, and I have been for a while. And like you, I've lived abroad. I've seen the American system, which is full of flaws. It's so bad in some states that if you have an accident, you don't call 911 and ask for the ambulance. You call the fire brigade, because if you call the fire brigade, you don't get a charge like you would if you called for an ambulance. So their system is flawed, but I think in a lot of ways it works better than the NHS. The problem is with social care, you've got local authorities wanting to do one thing. The NHS is there to provide a slightly different version of that. Both sides aren't married up, and all we do with the NHS is chuck more and more money at it. And we're not sorting the problem. We're just hosing it down with cash. But what we've got to do is go in and sort out how it's managed and how it's run. You can't just keep chucking money at it. The Tories are never going to get rid of it, because if they do, no one's going to vote for them. And Labour is still, after all these years, saying, look, this is what we did for you. We gave you the NHS. Yep. We're kind of stuck with it, aren't we, Andre?
Absolutely. Barmy Brunch, what's your response to that?
I couldn't hear him.
Right, okay, let's do this, right? Because every time, right, they've not been given an earpiece. Right? By the way, there have been contributors before who've had a stab at that. I was listening to one bloke once and I was thinking, you're making some quite good points, but it's totally irrelevant to what the previous bloke said. And I thought, he's not got an earpiece. Okay, what we are going to do is we're going to give you an earpiece, but I will tell you quickly what Alex said. Alex said what he feels is that we're constantly spending more money on the NHS, but it doesn't feel like things are getting better. In fact, it feels like things are getting worse.
Yeah. Well, that backs me up. We are funding the NHS properly. They're getting more than enough of taxpayers' money, and people say that post-Brexit, they were promised £350 million a week extra as soon as we leave the EU. They've been given that money. Yeah. They've been given far more money than is needed. It's just about spending it wisely, please. It's not a lot to ask.
But I think actually, no matter how good you are, so one thing, look, we've got brilliant doctors, we've got brilliant nurses, we've probably got pretty good managers, actually. The big problem is, it is so unwieldy and ungovernable that nobody can make it sensible. Now, ultimately, you can't have that many really good doctors and nurses and be completely terrible. But I actually think that they are badly let down, and the reality is any other system would be better. But at the end of the day, it is not true to say that you can have so many good people and everybody die. It's just not going to happen. But I think we could be so much better.
And it's not got better since even the scrapping of NHS England. That was months. That was last year, mid last year, and we're not seeing a difference. So. Yeah, I think money's just being
scrapping NHS England was probably a good idea because nobody knew what it did.
Yeah, nobody knew what it did, and it was a duplicate of all the other stuff that they don't do well. So, yeah, my
favourite ever story about bureaucracy was this. Right, I remember when I worked at London City Hall. So remember, when the Greater London Council was abolished, Margaret Thatcher set up the Government Office for London. Goal, right? So then Ken Livingstone and the mayoralty in the London Assembly, the thing that Sadiq Khan has got now, was set up. But GOL still existed. So I remember saying to my boss, I went, what does GOL actually do? Now all of its powers have been passed. He goes, I don't really know. Ask Ken Livingstone. And I went, Ken, what does GOL? And he goes, I've got no idea. Absolutely no. And he was the mayor of London and didn't know what these 300 people were actually doing. They went into work every day and nobody knew what they were doing. But the problem is, Alex, these bureaucracies never die once they're created.
No. They don't. They're like middle management, aren't they? How many people are watching this and listening to this who've been fired or the jobs are under threat at this very moment, and they think all of us on the shop floor are under threat, or most of us, but middle management never seems to be affected, and it's like all of these bureaucrats that you're talking about.
Yeah, well, I will tell you my favourite local government story. I remember when I worked at City Hall, there was this one woman on our floor who was, she was big, right? She was the one who bought the 6 cream cakes, so she could get away with having 2, right? As long as she gave away the other 4. And basically, she just used to sit there consuming cream cakes all day, right? And we got an email one day, and it said, I'm going on a missionary to Africa. I thought, oh, they're going to be gutted when they see her. They're all starving and this thing waddles down. Anyway, so she now is going off for 6 months, and she's going on unpaid leave for 6 months to go to Africa. I remember saying to my boss, right, that woman, what is her actual job? And you know what the answer was? She's your PA. What do you mean she's my PA? She's never even uttered a word to me. She just sat there consuming cakes, right? You would have thought that by 8 months in, she might have mentioned that she was my PA. She never even mentioned it. I said, I have never spoken to this woman in my life. She hasn't even offered me a cream cake, right? My PA, what's she been doing? I mean, you would have thought by the end of the second week you would have walked up and gone, by the way, I work for you. But in the whole of 8 months, not even a word.
Did she give you a cream cake?
No, she didn't.
She didn't.
I never
Sack
said
her.
a word. Sack her? I didn't even know I employed her until she left. I mean, it's fair to say there wasn't exactly a hole in that administration when she did. I mean, there was quite a big.
Well, a donut-shaped hole.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I mean, obviously there were fewer cream cakes being consumed. But anyway, I'm going to go onto the front page of the Telegraph and just say, this whole thing about protests in Iran, I know my good friend Maya Touzi genuinely believes that the Iranian regime is going to fall. The king is saying that they don't want outside interference. They want to just do it themselves, potentially by freezing Iranian assets in the UK. But Donald Trump says he may step in. Look, Alex, do we want another foreign adventure, or is this an issue for the Iranians?
Well, it's impossible, isn't it? I mean, we have to, if Donald Trump steps in, we can crush Iran's economy by being really, really tough with sanctions. But of course, the people who suffer are the innocent Iranians who are living in the country. That's the big shame of it. It's the civilian suffering, which is the real price. But what I think Donald Trump needs to do is be tough with strikes without waging war. But that is walking a very, very fine line, Andre. So there's no easy way out of this. You can enforce bigger oil export bans, but you know, when you put pressure on these Iranian regimes, they work very well under pressure.
I think the truth about Iran is they've just run out of steam. I just don't think they can do anything anymore. I mean, I will say one thing that shocked me. I won't use the actual word, but you'll get the impression. At the Iranian equivalent of the FA Cup final, the crowd sang, "You can stick your Islam up your A." And now, look, I mean, that is a pretty robust message in the Islamic Republic of Iran, but they've just had enough. Now, that it's not to say they're not Muslims, they are, but they just disagree with this crazy, radical Islam. But look, I'm going to ask the guys in the studio, I think I'm pretty against any adventure into Iran. I think I agree with the king. We should freeze foreign assets and potentially give it to the rebels. But in terms of bombing, boots on the ground, any of that, I just don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think learning lessons from the past. I think we just know that it never ends well for either side. So really, it's probably best to just keep going with freezing of assets and seeing then if you can kind of almost smoke them out.
I mean, also, George, I mean, given that it's come to this point, it doesn't look like they need our help anyway.
Yeah, true. Well, I've always been vehemently anti-war for the last few years at least, and so I wouldn't be in favour of going to war in Iran. However, every single news outlet in this country always tries to denigrate everything going on in Iran and what the Supreme Leader has achieved over there. Now, I always try and approach things with less cynicism, with an open mind. What good has the Supreme Leader done in his time in the Iranian office? I did a bit of research.
I mean, I think this is going to be a tough sell, but go for it.
Well,
not necessarily.
Hear me out.
I will say the talk TV audience is not the most fertile when you are defending the Ayatollah Khomeini's reign of Iran.
I'm sure he's a good guy.
I welcome you for trying it.
We did well with James Cleverly in the early segments, so building on that.
So the Supreme Leader of Iran, he increased self-sufficiency with regards to imports and exports.
Yeah.
Less reliant upon oil as their only source of income.
Yeah.
Increased defence spending, something we need to do here. Increased spending in science and technology.
Which is making nukes, yeah, got that.
Well, no, he also invested a lot in stem cell research, believe it or not. So, for all his ills, and this isn't me saying I want to become an Iranian
For all his
citizen,
ills, to be fair, he was well into stem cell research and spent a lot on the military.
Yeah, don't take the mick now, Andre. No, but what I'm trying to say is...
on the downside, he gassed his own people.
But what I'm trying to say is every single news outlet, left or right in this country and across the West, tries to throw rubbish at these Eastern regimes.
But I don't know.
But let's try and approach it with an open mind. Is he a good guy? Has he done anything good? Because just as in our country, I want to look at the good Starmer's done and the bad. Let's look at the good and the bad that Mr. whatever his name is has done in Iran.
The criticism of the Ayatollah Khomeini, I would suggest to you, Barmy Brunch, is this. First of all, he has taken over a fundamentally moderate country and put in a crazed Islamic fundamentalist regime, which has significantly damaged the public. And in any case, they don't want it. The next point, they are a huge sponsor of international terrorism. If the leadership of Iran faced a genuine election, they would lose badly. That is the criticism.
And of course, the suspicion is if they faced it, it would be rigged, and there would be sort of a 95.9%.
Yeah, the Robert Mugabe result.
Exactly, and that's also telling, isn't it? It's one of these things where it just doesn't sit well to see what's going on, and just people are protesting and they're being shot, says the reports.
But Andre, as an experienced political commentator yourself, have you played devil's advocate? And maybe the Iranian regime has done good things. Have you asked yourself that question? Because I think you're just the same as everyone else, and that's all right. I doubt you've actually tried to see the positives that they've done over there. Now, I'm no supporter of the Iranian regime. I think it's horrible what they do, but there's a reason why some people are behind that cause. Now, let's try and see it through their lens and maybe look more inwardly. Why do they hate us? What have we done to them?
But here's the slight problem with that. And I don't disagree with saying, not everything they do is awful.
Yeah.
Right? And I understand that. But at the same time, if you were to say that the odd good policy mitigates your behaviour in general, then you would have to say that Adolf Hitler's road building programme was without question excellent, and Germany still benefits from it.
Trains ran on time.
Now, on the negative side, he gassed 6 million people. And you sit there and you go, well, OK, is the positive contribution of Adolf Hitler, could it ever be enough to mitigate the bad parts? No, is my answer. But that's not to say...
I'm not saying excuse it entirely. I'm just saying... Well, so when someone like Hitler got in power, high inflation, huge national debt, and economically, the Nazis did some very good things. Can we take a leaf out of their book and forget the human rights violations the Nazis endorsed?
No, look,
I'm not saying they're good people, but every regime in history has good and bad.
Let's just be clear. Adolf Hitler invaded Poland because his treasury was bankrupt. What he actually did was created an enormous Ponzi scheme, which was this. The German central bank loaned the government money in order to pay for armaments, and those armaments were taken on tick from the central bank. And bluntly, when those loans went toxic, they had to invade Poland in order to pay the bill. Adolf Hitler's knowledge of the economy was similar to his knowledge of race relations, i.e. didn't have any knowledge. Anyway, we're going to say thank you to Barbie Brudge and George Gilbert. We're going to stick with Alex Dyke. We will be back just in a couple of moments.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
I will tell you one thing. I know he was kicked out of Big Brother, but I have maximum respect for a man who comes on this channel and has a crack at defending the record of the Ayatollah Khomeini. I mean, look, you've got to say, look, that requires some level of gumption, and it requires some level of bluntly balls. But I will tell you something. I can imagine why Big Brother hated him. I can imagine he sat there going, well, the Ayatollah Khomeini's not all bad. To be fair, he did, A, increase defence spending. Well, that's not necessarily good because he was buying nuclear weapons. B, he increased investment in science. Yes, that's also nuclear weapons. And C, he did stem cell research. OK, only one of those is potentially positive. Anyway, we're still here on the press preview with Alex Dyke, who hasn't had a huge amount of time to go through the papers, but I know you've looked at them. Alex, what's jumped out at you from the front pages?
Well, tragically, Andre, it's this this story from Switzerland. All these young teenage skiers celebrating the new year, and of course, it's across just about every front page. And I think we've all been in restaurants with our own families when we've had a child or a teenager who's had a birthday, and they stand up on the chair, and we all sing happy birthday, and the waiters come out clapping with sparklers in an ice cream sundae, thinking it's all completely innocent and safe with indoor fireworks. But I would be very surprised if there's not a world blanket ban on sparklers inside after this horrific fire, which seemed to go from joy to absolute terror in seconds.
Well, do you know something? I was talking yesterday, and we had the Grand Secretary of English Freemasonry, and he obviously owns or manages a colossal building in central London. And I said to him, you know, ultimately, Alex, people like you, people like me, very often have a go at these health and safety people. Oh, God, they're always having a go, blah, blah. But fundamentally, in Britain, when you go into a building, it is generally unbelievably safe. It gets inspected, it gets checked. You know, when something like Grenfell happens, we're absolutely horrified and shocked. You know, this place simply would not be allowed to do what it was doing if it was in the United Kingdom. You know, fundamentally, having a insulation system on the ceiling that was highly flammable.
I know. It does sound absolutely crazy, and this building had a very low ceiling. So if you've got some party goer and you put them on your shoulders, like I believe is what happened here, and they've got a sparkler in their hand inside a drink or an ice cream sundae or whatever it was, if you've got inflammable material on that ceiling, it seems absolutely, it seems like something that may have happened in Britain in the 1960s.
Yes.
But I have worked and done gigs in many nightclubs when there have been, and I'm not saying all of them, by a good long stretch, where there have been beer barrels across fire exit doors that don't seem to want to open. And this is going to be a massive wake-up call for the entertainment and hospitality industry around the world.
Do you remember, was it Watchdog, and people used to take the mick out of Lynn Foldswood because she used to go, it's a potential death trap. And I remember her coming on years later saying, look, when we first started that show, people would put their toaster on that would explode, or a kid would touch the front of an oven and their hand would stick to it because it was that hot. And she said, actually, you know, we forced up standards by criticising these people. And she said, the fact I was continually saying this is a potential death trap was because it was true. And actually nowadays, when you buy a microwave, it won't explode in your face because of that. And so I think that all of these efforts to make things safer are so important. It's only when you look at something like this that you realise that these people who sound like moaners are actually doing you a favour.
Yeah, and I'm obviously talking to you from home tonight, from Cowes on the Isle of Wight, Andre. And if I just stepped into my kitchen, I could get you a letter that came through from the company that supplied me with my tumble dryer and cooker and all of that when I had my kitchen fitted, to say there may be a potential problem with your tumble dryer. You need to check the serial number on it because it could be wired incorrectly or something like that. Now, I got that letter about a week ago, and I thought, oh, it's not going to be anything. But since this horrific story, the first thing I'll be checking in the morning is the serial number for my tumble dryer, because it's just absolutely awful what has happened to those poor young people. And so many people
Horrendous.
died, and so many have been seriously injured. And the ripple effects from that are all of these beautiful families whose Christmases and lives will never be the same.
By the way, I do want to give you all a fire safety tip. And I know this sounds a bit weird, but something that the fire brigades are pointing out, lots of people bought air fryers, and what happens is if you cook with an air fryer, obviously oil and whatever will pool at the bottom of it. You've got to remember, A, to not put your air fryer on when you're out, and B, make sure you throw that oil away, because what can happen, doesn't happen often, is that oil can ignite, and if it does ignite, then that's going to cause a very severe problem very quickly. And so you've just got to be slightly careful on that. Now, the reason why the fire brigade are warning you about this is because we're all quite new to air fryers, so we don't necessarily know what the dangers and pitfalls and risks of them are.
No, and do you remember in the 80s, the deep fat fryers?
Oh, God.
I mean, it was like having an inferno, a potential inferno in your kitchen. And the fire brigade, I did a radio show once years ago, and the fire officer came in and he said, I just want to say, if you go out on a Friday or Saturday night and you have a few drinks and you come back and you are a little bit drunk, don't light a cigarette indoors, because that could cause a fire. Don't start making chip butties at 1:30 in the morning after having a few pints of beer, because you'll go to sleep and potentially burn down your home.
I've got to be honest with you. My flatmate, when I was at university, put the chip pan on and fell asleep. And look, he didn't burn the house down, but I will tell you, the smoke damage within minutes, the place was wrecked. It was dreadful. I mean, I was chairing the University of London Union, but my phone goes off and he goes, Andre, I burnt the house down. Oh, brilliant, okay. But it is so bad. Anyway, look, let's have a look at the paper. OK, tougher Brexit border checks to trigger delays as Portugal U-turns over Q chaos. Look, the EU is tightening up on Brits going to the EU. I just think it's a bit of a waste of time, but I think it's a price worth paying for British independence. Now, look, you're not on the South Coast, you're on the Isle of Wight, but is it a major problem, all of these queues getting into continental Europe?
Yeah, the continental ferry port just across the water in Portsmouth is getting bigger and bigger and bigger queues.
Right.
But our borders, what just infuriates me so much, and you often hear people saying, oh, you're talking right wing, the left will, and I say, no, I'm not. I'm just talking common sense. Our borders, people died in 2 world wars to protect our borders. It's very, very important to us that we have borders. And I'm going to America in a couple of weeks' time, and I need to get my ESTA sorted out with my passport, because I know border control there is going to be ferocious. They take it very, very seriously, like we used to, Andre. What is the point now in us even bothering with passports if we're letting complete strangers in who we don't know who they are? They're young men of a fighting age. We keep saying it, but it's fact. Just look at those pictures on the newsreels every day. These people coming into our country who've chucked away their passports and their mobile phones. We don't know whether they're rapists or murderers or drug smugglers or whatever. We're letting them in. Why are we stopping little old ladies coming over from France at Heathrow and giving them the 3rd degree?
Do you know, I knew this girl who worked as a beautician in London. Now, as it happened, she was working illegally. Didn't know that. But she flew into Heathrow Airport from wherever she came from. I don't know which country it was. And they stopped her. They opened her bag and they said, look, you've got all of these tools of the trade for being a beautician. We believe that you are illegally working in the UK. Fine, OK, they do that. And they said to her, we are now going to throw you out of the country. And she said, that's fine. Rather than deporting me back or rather than sending me back to the country I came from, instead I want to buy a flight to Dublin. And they said, you can do that. You can fly anywhere you want, as long as it's not the UK. She flew to Dublin, and then she changed in Dublin a flight to Heathrow and arrived in Heathrow. All she literally did was went via Ireland. And that was it, completely fine. The reason for that is that she was allowed to go to the Republic of Ireland, and there are no immigration checks between Ireland and the UK. So as long as you get into Ireland, you're all tickety-boo. That was the sum total of our prevention of her illegally working. It took her 6 hours extra.
I know. It's crazy. We seem to... This doesn't seem to matter to politicians and the authorities at the moment, but it does matter to the British people, because I want my family and your family and everybody's family to be as safe as they possibly can. And we have enough problems with the people who are here legally, the people that were born here, us, the British. You know, the prisons are full up because we can't behave ourselves. What's it saying about society? Society's completely broken down, and now we're letting in anybody who wants to come in to make it worse.
Absolutely. OK, this is a press preview with Andre Walker and Alex Dyke. We'll be back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, this is a press preview with Andre Walker and Alex Dyke. Alex, I just want to put this on this front page up, which is the Daily Telegraph. And I have to say, I kind of get really upset about this, but David Lammy is now saying that he wants teenagers to sign up as magistrates. Now, I know we've said this 1,000 times, but honestly, I genuinely believe that we should be looking for people in that sort of position as a magistrate. We should be looking for people who would be good in the position, not let's get one black person, one Chinese person, one white person, one teenager, one woman, whatever. What they seem to be obsessed with in government is not what you can do, it's what you are. I mean, for me, I'm interested in a magistrate being competent, whether they're black or white. I just don't see how that makes any difference.
No, it doesn't. You need the best people to do the job. And, you know, when you're a teenager, I remember being a teenager and being convinced that I knew it all. But as you get older, you look back and you think, oh, the things, if you can remember, the things I thought when I was a younger person, because I hadn't thought them through properly, or I hadn't lived a life which gave me the experience. I don't think we should be having teenagers as magistrates at all. I think that you should be at least 30 years old before you can be a magistrate, because you've got to have lived a life. Even if you're a magistrate and you're one of the younger ones, maybe you still haven't lived a full enough life. But I just think letting teenagers be magistrates is a bit crazy. But then everything about David Lammy is a little bit crazy.
But I just don't see the value of having a bench that is, you know, representative of society. So you're saying, OK, say as an example, 10% of people in Britain are black. I don't know, I'm making that figure up. Therefore, 10% of magistrates have to be black. And you think, well, but what value has that actually brought forward? Now, if you were to say, we need to make sure that magistrates understand modern Britain and understand the challenges of a diverse society, that makes sense. But simply saying 8% of people are Muslim, we need 8% Muslims, you know, well, yeah, but for what? What is the purpose? I mean, you know, let's have 30% Muslims if these people know how to do the job. But the idea that you are judging somebody's ability to be a magistrate based on the colour of their skin is self-evidently ludicrous.
Well, what about looking at it like this, Andre? And this is just an idea and a reaction to what you've said. If you're in a highly black populated area like Brixton, and there just happens to be more knife crime there than there would be in Cornwall, maybe you need more black people on the bench because they understand the culture better.
No. This is where so I understand what you're saying, and in practice that might be true. But you said it yourself, what you need is people who understand the challenges of that society. Now, those people may be black, they may be white, they may be Chinese, but to simply say this person is black, ergo they understand the challenges of Brixton, I think is incredibly lazy. Now, it may well be that in order to understand the challenges of Brixton in full, you have to be black. But it's not the colour of your skin that is what is the determinant factor. It's the knowledge of the area.
Yeah, I know, and I agree with I'm not disagreeing with what you say, but I'm saying you need to come from the same kind of culture to understand the problems and the challenges, whether it's Cornwall, Brixton, Coventry or Aberdeen.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I mean, we're not disagreeing, but I would suggest to you that what you need in any situation is to ensure that magistrates have a competent understanding of the area. I mean, the reason why they like getting local people is because one would assume that because you live locally, you have some understanding of the locality, which, I mean, you'd certainly have more than someone who doesn't. But the quotas, I think, is a mistake. But I do think there's something that you said, which was absolutely right. I think no matter what you say about being representative, everybody understands that there are elements of being a young person which makes you less competent to do certain things. As an example, you wouldn't ask a 5-year-old to vote. Asking an 18-year-old to make it's not life and death decisions, but making very, very serious decisions as a magistrate, I think it is legitimate to tell a 20-year-old or an 18-year-old, even though you are very intelligent, you nonetheless probably lack the maturity. Now, remember something, an 18-year-old, I think, can apply now. What Lammy's saying, let's deliberately bring them in because we believe that there's something inherent to being a teenager that adds something to the bench. I say there's nothing inherent about being a teenager that brings anything. There is potentially the disbenefit of being immature, and if somebody brings something else, they can do it anyway.
Yeah. And I think that there's a big difference now with teenagers in 2026 to there was in the past. I mean, some of those poor souls were at 14 and 15 fighting in the First World War.
Yes.
Now, I know we've come a long way since that, but, I've got 2 sons in their 20s who are very, very mature in many, many ways and quite immature in others just because of the generation they come from. I speak to friends who are parents of children of the same age. These lads are still gaming when they get in from work. They're not living the lives that even you and I lived when we were younger because society's different. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying it's different. But they've lived, most of them, very, very sheltered lives because parents have tended to look after them and try and keep them in and keep them safer.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, look, you formerly worked at the BBC, and there's something else on the front page of The Telegraph. I'm not particularly interested in the story itself. I just want to get your impression about the direction of the BBC. The story itself is about the BBC having to pay compensation for going into an Israeli family's home and filming, the devastation without permission. Frankly, not that bothered about that. But you are somebody who has a huge amount of knowledge about the BBC. Look, I'm pretty let down by it. I don't massively care, simply because I don't watch it. I don't know anyone who watches it. And if they want to get on and do whatever it is that they want, that's fine. But there are many people who watch and listen to this show who really want the BBC to be successful, and there's more who resent paying the licence fee. What should happen next with our national broadcaster?
Well, I think the first thing that the BBC should be doing is looking for an over-50s ambassador. When you think about it, the under-20s, definitely the under-18s, do not buy television licenses, right? Young people are not invested in the BBC. Now, the licence fee brings in just under £4 billion.
Yes.
And half of that, Andre, comes from the over-50s.
Does it?
And the over-50s have are not only paying that money in, those who still are, they've been paying it in all of their lives.
Yeah.
And there's precious, but there's breadcrumbs for the over 50s. I can't think of one program really, apart from Escape from the Country, you could say maybe is aimed at them, and Strictly not really. I know the over 50s like it, but it's a big family program and they're not getting a say. And the BBC has to realise that we are partners and not passengers on the journey they're taking us on. Back in the day, Lord Reith made sure the BBC were broadcasting what was good for you, what the BBC thought you should be watching. And we've gone full circle, and that's what's happening now.
But one of the things that worries me or crosses my mind, what if the BBC were brilliant? Would you not also still be able to say nobody cares?
No, I don't think you would. I think the thing about you and me and a lot of the people that talk and a lot of the people who are watching and listening is we don't want to be hacked off with the BBC. We don't want to have fallen out of love with the BBC. But the BBC has become very, very woke, and it doesn't care in the main, I don't believe, about its audience. It just cares about ticking boxes. And we feel like the BBC, I think a lot of people my age feel like the BBC has let us down and left us and gone off to find a younger lover.
But I just feel about the BBC, I just think that, I just kind of don't care, really. I mean, I know loads of our presenters and loads of our viewers and audience and whatever really hate the BBC, but it's just not kind of on my radar. And I think the big problem with the whole thing is this: it's just hard to see the point of any of it. I mean, you could say I don't like adverts, yeah, all right, but you can pay for Netflix to not have adverts. I think the problem is that the BBC just now is doing what it feels it ought to do. And I think the other point I'd make about the BBC, I genuinely think that the licence fee is its biggest weakness. I think that stops them from genuinely being creative. I think if they came up with a different funding model, it would actually be a help, because the problem is at the moment, losing ratings, nobody liking you, doesn't make any difference because of the licence fee. And I think if that changed, they would be the principal beneficiaries.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. And the BBC, like the National Health, had its glory years in a bygone age. We needed a national state broadcaster back in the 30s and the 40s to keep us up to date with the Second World War and farming. If you look at back at the Archers, which is the longest running radio soap or drama in the world, that was put on the radio to help farmers in the farming community. And the BBC worked wonders for the great British public back in the 40s, 50s, 60s and 70s. We don't need we don't need that BBC. What we need is a new slimmed down BBC, like a slimmed down royal family. Things have to change, and the BBC are out of step with their audience. And I want the BBC to survive, but they've got to turn it around. And it's like an old tanker. It's like an old oil tanker in the middle of the ocean. It's going to take a long time to turn it around.
Okay, well, let's just remember, this is my favourite quiz question. Who was the president of Russia when the BBC licence fee was invented? Lenin. Lenin. I mean, that is quite a long time ago, right? The president of the United States of America was Calvin Coolidge, right? I mean, this is a funding model that is so archaic that the president of Russia was Vladimir Lenin at the time they came up with the plan.
The only programme I watched on the BBC over Christmas, and I promise you this is true, the only one was they showed the movie Jaws, and after that they had a 50-year celebration documentary about that fantastic movie, the biggest blockbuster of all time, the first blockbuster ever. And I watched this documentary, and the credits came up at the end. So many people have worked on it, and I then realised as the credits came up, it wasn't even the BBC. It was made by National Geographic. We don't need the BBC making these programs
Alex, I have
anymore.
to say, we had George Gilbert defending the Ayatollah Khomeini. Your defence of the BBC, to be fair, they showed a really interesting documentary about Jaws. I think when you listen to that back, you will think to yourself, it's not exactly a justification for £175 a year. Anyway, this is the press preview with me, Andre Walker, and Alex Dyke. We will be back just in a couple of moments.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is the press preview with Andre Walker and Alex Dyke. Look, you know, most of the front pages are filled up, obviously, with this terrible situation in Switzerland, but there are some other things knocking about. And I did think that one of the things that was really interesting, once again, it's the Telegraph, so apologies for being repetitious, but it's about the idea now that people are saying that there are more and more high flyers, top professionals and executives who want to work part-time. Look, I'm not sure about this working from home thing, and I'm not sure about part-time working, but do you think greater flexibility in the jobs market is a good thing, or is it something that potentially is just creating inefficiency and making our companies less able to compete?
Well, I think that this working from home experiment, because people didn't just start doing it in lockdown, Andre.
No.
There were people working from home before that. I think it was probably all going quite well until COVID happened. And then people stayed at home because they had to, and then they realised they could hang around at home in their lounge pants and jogging bottoms, and they could empty the tumble dryer in between emails, and it's made Britain, and maybe the Western world, lazy. And I want people to be back at work. I think it's good for I know there's awful problems with commuting, with public transport, and trains are expensive. I get all that, and I can see why some people want to work a 4-day week. I do understand it, but I think it would be better for Britain if we weren't so soft and we got people back into the workplace and we didn't make it too easy for people.
But look, so I'm fine with that. I've got a friend of mine who's a partner in a law firm. Now, remember, as a partner in a law firm, he owns the law firm. And he said, we had 3 buildings. And he said, one of which we owned, 2 of which we rented. He said, obviously, the nature of being a lawyer is that your laptops and your phones are very secure anyway. So obviously, every member of staff has a secure laptop. He said, when we got people to work from home, it cost us virtually nothing. And he said, then I'm looking at these very expensive office blocks that we're paying a fortune for. And he said, I want rid of them. So I think there is an element of that. But I think also the other thing that I would say is that when you look back at all the working from home, I think there is one thing that we did that was stupid. The idea of everyone getting on the train at 8 a.m. and everyone getting on the train at 5 o'clock, I think is dreadful. I think that idea of having core time and staggering makes a great deal of sense.
Absolutely. We should have been staggering more years and years and years ago. But look, I'm here, so I got a call from Chuck, the producer, asking me if I could do this tonight. And I said yes, but I couldn't get to the studio. So here I am at home, and I've put a jacket on for you and a roll neck, but I've got my jogging bottoms on. I'm here in my stocking feet, but I'd much rather be at the station with you guys, drinking coffee and hanging out and feeling the buzz. Being at home is just not the same for most people. It's all right for some professions, but for most people, it's not as good.
I agree, but always remember there's a cost associated with coming into the studio. As an example, in your case, if I'd have said we can only have you in the studio, we wouldn't have had you at all. And therefore, and look, that is a microcosm of what happens more generally. So I think fundamentally you've got to have a mix. I mean, I worry though about people who work from home who are not doing anything. And I think that actually there's that point. But I think the other thing is the number one thing that we lose. So it's all right with you being there now on Zoom. We couldn't do what we're doing as well if we didn't know each other. And the only way we're going to know each other is having been in studio together. So even though you're not in studio now, I'm still benefiting from the fact that we have met face to face, if you see what I mean.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. And, you know, I want to see the whites of your eyes like you want to see the whites of my eyes. And that's much
more bloodshot red today, if I'm being totally honest.
All right, okay. And that's much easier over the desk in the studio. But, you know, I get why it works. And if it's the national health and you've got a boil on your nose, yeah, let's have a Zoom so the doctor can look at it. But there's many things the doctor can't do on a Zoom. And of course, the book hasn't been written on this yet, Andre. And until it is, we're not going to know what's good, what's acceptable, what works, what was a waste of time, because we're so brand new to this.
Yeah, okay, so let me put on the front page of The Guardian these concerns about health AI. Now, I've got to say to you, I think that new technology is good, and when it comes out, obviously, there are teething problems. But one of the things that's amazing is that because of this idea of hallucination with large language models, which is to say, artificial intelligence doesn't know what it's saying, it's just putting the next word based on what people have previously said. You know, putting AI in charge of things where it makes mistakes 10% of times actually increasingly is slowing down business rather than speeding it up. I mean, I just worry that if we get all this AI in health, we will start ending up with all sorts of mistakes.
Yeah, and I was doing a piece for Talk on Weekend Breakfast last week, and I wanted to quickly look up the history of that Pogue's Christmas record.
Yeah.
And I put it into AI, and I just wanted a breakdown of when it had been banned, when the ban had been lifted, when it had been on top of the pops. And it told me the record was released in 1987. I thought, no, it wasn't. I remember it Christmas 83.
Yeah.
So AI makes mistakes. Now, if it can make mistakes about a silly pop song in the Christmas charts, just think what a mistake for the health profession would be like in AI. It could be catastrophic.
Well, the big problem, of course, with health records is that they have to be right all of the time. Therefore, when you say AI is mostly right, what that means in practice is a real human has to read every single record. And what people are saying increasingly is by the time you've read every single record and corrected the mistakes, you've just been as quick to update them yourself.
Yeah, and I think AI has a place, but I think we've got to keep it under control because it could easily, it could easily kill the voiceover business, the music business, and there's part of me that would like to see Sean Connery back as James Bond in a new Bond movie set in the 60s with the Aston Martin. That would be absolutely amazing, and we're not too far away from that. But the trouble for us is it's like online shopping. We all want the high street to survive, but we all want to order stuff on Amazon, and you can't have your cake and eat it. And it's the same with what I've just said about, you know, Sean Connery back as Bond.
Well, I think George Lucas did something very, very smart and very helpful to that process with Peter Cushing, Grand Moff Tarkin. And that is to say that he put Peter Cushing into a Star Wars film, even though Peter was dead. And what he did was he went to the family, he sought their permission, and he paid the estate as if Peter had actually been in it. So he worked out the number of days that Peter would have been on set, whatever the day rate of Peter Cushing is, no idea. And he said, look, rather than have an argument about AI, I will pay you as if he was actually in the film. Now, I think that was a big step forward because I think that gives reassurance to people to interact with that sort of technology.
Yeah, and that's very respectful to Peter's family. The problem there is that was one actor who didn't get a job. And if we did that with everybody, or if we did that with a lot, that's a lot of actors, that's
Yeah.
a lot of musicians, a lot of voiceover people, a lot of artists, a lot of great. I mean, I did a poster for a gig. I always pay a guy to do posters for the events that I put on, and he wasn't available a couple of months ago. And I went on. I feel so I went on AI and I did the poster myself, and I thought, well, actually, that guy's now lost 120 quid. I would have usually paid him to do the artwork on my poster. I felt bad for it, but then again, here I am wanting my cake and eating it.
Well, I think the big concern I've got is that we have all signed release forms over the years, and there is no technical or legal impediment as it stands for the biggest rival to this show to be an AI Andre Walker, where somebody has bought the rights to something I did when I was 25 and fleshed out all the words. So I may be in a position where my biggest rival in ratings is me, but an AI version of me owned by somebody else. And I really, I really think that would be grossly unfair.
Yeah, I think we've got to. I mean, there will be controls because the rock and pop superstars, the elite of Hollywood, are going to say, hang on a minute, this is not right. We own copyright. We own our own images. Something will happen, but we're not there yet. It's like when, the internet started. If I got there before you, I could have bought AndreWalker.com and held you to ransom for your own name on the internet. Well, you can't really do that anymore.
No.
And a lot of people did that with Twitter when Twitter came out. You could have nabbed Paul McCartney's name on Twitter. Well, you can't do that now. So things will happen, but the book hasn't been written on this yet either.
Oh, I mean, there's no doubt there was loads of people who would do things like thesun.com and then get in touch with News UK and go, I want £500,000 for thesun.com. Now, did everyone pay? No, but many people did.
Absolutely, it's scary, but we will get a grip on it. But I don't think it's too far down the line, and I don't know what that hold will be. But the big business, Coca-Cola, are not going to let you or me recreate any of their brand on AI. They will not have it.
No, absolutely. Okay, look, Alex, this is the dying moments of the press preview. I just want to look forward to 2026. What are your predictions for this year? What things you're looking forward to? What things you're not looking forward to? Or are you just not bothered?
No, I'm very bothered. I'm very bothered with the situation. I think as a family man, as a parent, I want to get our borders secure. I'm not worried about the being on the left or the right or being in with the Greens or whatever. I just want common sense. I want our streets to be safer. I want our cities in particular to be safer. I want our borders. I want someone to do something about those boats, because as I've said to you guys before, everyone goes on about, oh, here comes another 700, here comes another 400. And all we're trying to do is put out fires. We're not even thinking, what about the ones that are already here and been here for 4 or 5 years?
Absolutely, I think that's right. And I think what people are angry about is there just doesn't seem to be any sanity to any of this. Anyway, that is Alex Dyke. Thank you so much. That is the press preview. And thanks for coming on, even though you couldn't come into the studio. It's very much appreciated. OK, look, for the next hour, we're going to be taking your calls, 0344 499 1000. Please do call me. I think we've got 5 slots available. That means that if you call now, you'll get straight through to Joe, who is our producer, who is quite happy to talk to you. And then you can come through to the studio. Look, it's the end of a big week. Everything's going to be kind of back to normal next week. This is your opportunity to say whatever it is you want. As I said, I'm very, very cash. Phone me, say whatever you want. Back in a mo.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
You know what? I think sometimes it's worth pulling back the curtain of the media, and so you understand what's going on. Right, we have got 5 callers that we need to call back. 4 of them are clearly ailed up and asleep. That means that at the moment, for the next hour, we have 1 caller, and it is Ken in London. Now, I'm not being critical of Ken. He's a good friend of mine. I'd like to think so anyway. But I think it's fair to say we can't have 58 minutes of him. So, if you want to help me out and call me, it's 0344 499 1000. You can talk about absolutely anything. If you are one of the 4 people that called earlier and you are asleep, then it might be helpful if you woke up. Because, as I say, Ken's a good friend of mine, but I think even he would concede that 58 minutes might be a bit much. Ken, welcome to the show.
It certainly would be too much for most of your listeners. Andre, if you don't mind, I believe that they were going to have much, and this is not hate speech, I believe the world is going to have much trouble this year from Islam. I see what's happening in New York, and things are going to be very, very difficult in New York, especially with the new mayor there being elected. He's a mayor, and he's a communist, and he's totally sold out to the teachings of Islam. But I would like to speak about the mission, the agenda of the Muslim prophet Muhammad.
Okay.
We need to understand why it seems to be, and it's sad to see that Islam promotes and it takes part in much violence, warfare all over the world since the 7th century. The mission of Muhammad is one of the foundation stones of Islam. And this can be read in the Hadith al-Bukhari, Volume 4, verse 196. And the mission of Muhammad is this, and this is what Muslims follow today.
Okay.
I have been ordered to fight with the people, all non-Muslims, till they say none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, who is the God of Islam. That is the underlying foundational beliefs below Islam, and the Muslims today continue with that mission.
So Ken, you will know more about this topic than me, but one thing that I often think, first of all, obviously the time of Muhammad was a time of war and strife, and so obviously many of the teachings will reflect that. But one thing that I do agree with the Muslims on, I do agree with this. I get this whole concept of, if you know, this jihad thing, that sometimes you have to be physically strong, but sometimes the battle between good and evil can be within you. Now, I'm not a Muslim, I'm a Christian, but I do think that just because sometimes you have to fight, that doesn't mean that you always fight, and it doesn't mean that fighting is the only ever struggle between good and evil. Do you see my point?
I know your point, that jihad means struggle, as you know.
Yes.
It can be an inward spiritual struggle against evil. That's one of the understandings of jihad.
Yeah.
But the main teaching of jihad is to take part in violent struggle for the cause of Allah. That is the main meaning behind jihad.
But to be fair, Ken, now look, Ken, I'm not going to persuade you to be a Muslim. Clearly, I'm not trying. But remember, when they say Allah, that is just the Arabic word for God. They believe, rightly or wrongly, that they're talking about the same God that you are talking about. Now, you would say wrongly, but they're not talking about Buddha or whatever. They are talking about the same fundamental deity, aren't they?
No, the god Allah is a moon god. Before the time of, you can check this out in history, before the time of Muhammad, the Arabs were polytheistic. And in the Kaaba, they had 360 gods in the Kaaba.
Right.
And the main god in the Kaaba, I think it was in Mecca, the main god was the moon god. Now, Muhammad didn't want polytheism. He wanted monotheism, one God.
Yes.
So as I have read, this is what I've read historically, this is what I've read, it can be challenged. What Muhammad did was he took out the moon god, the main god from the Kaaba, and he took him out and he made him the one monotheistic God called Allah. That's what and all the things when they go over to the when they go for the pilgrimages over there to Saudi Arabia, all the things that they do, throwing the stones at the devil, etc., etc., they were all Arab pagan practices before the time of Muhammad. So he just kept them, and he changed the name of the god to Allah.
I mean, by the way, just for all the viewers and listeners, the reason I'm not pushing back on Ken is this is more than I know about Islam. So Ken may be right, he might be wrong. The reason I'm not challenging him is I genuinely don't know. But anyway, Ken, please continue.
But see, so what we're seeing today in the world is the Islamists. These are the radical Muslims. They literally follow the teachings of Muhammad. They regard Muhammad as the greatest example of a Muslim, one who was surrendered to his God, Allah. That's what Islam means, surrender.
It does, yeah.
Right. So, but what we are seeing today is why these Muslims they're so dedicated to the cause is because they are following the Prophet Muhammad and what he had been told by some power.
But what about, Ken, what about these, and I know we've had this discussion before, and look, I just want to be clear with absolutely everybody listening to Ken. Ken is not a hate-filled man, and he's not having a go at anybody. He's literally just saying, please, repent and turn to Jesus, because I believe that's the way you get to heaven. Right. But one of the things that I do think we have to remember, look, I believe that Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever it is wrong. I believe Christianity is correct. That's inherent for anybody who has a Christian belief. But what about those people within the Islamic faith who, despite the fact that you believe they're wrong religiously, are just very nice people? They're not trying to cause any trouble. They're just going about their everyday lives. Isn't it worth reminding people that even though you think they're wrong religiously, you don't dislike them?
Of course not, but I love to talk to a Muslim about Jesus. And I don't, as a Christian, we don't hate anybody except the devil and sin. But to be honest, I have met some wonderful, peace-loving Muslims. They're very genuine. Yeah. They're seeking to know the God they have been taught about in the Quran. That's their desire, to know their God. Well, I try and point them to read the scriptures because the scriptures came before the Quran. Yeah. However, that doesn't change the situation here that the world is under a great threat, especially the Western world, Andre. There's no hate speech here. No. There's no hatred against any Muslim at all. But we must address the evil situation and an evil attempt by Islam to force us, who are non-Muslims, they've been taught to fight with the people till they want to force us to say none has the right to be worshipped but Allah. Yeah. This is what they want us to do, to force us. This is what Muhammad was...
Well, I will say to you, no matter how well-meaning you may be, I do not believe that Britain should be a majority anything other than Christian country. So you might be well-meaning, you might be very nice, you might be trying to do the right thing, but I believe Britain should be majority Christian. But Ken, I wanted to ask you this question, because this is one of those issues that you and I have disagreed on before. But anyway, right. So I was saying, I think yesterday or the day before, that I personally very strongly approve of the way that people are turning to Christianity because they believe that is a way of standing up for Britain. Now, the criticism of these people is they're not fully embracing Christianity, but I think the fact that we are starting to turn a corner and people are starting to go back to churches, starting to teach their kids about Christianity, even though these people are not perfect, I think it's a good thing. What's your view?
It's a very good thing. Jesus said to us, to anybody who reads the Bible, seek and you shall find. So before you find something, it takes a bit of while to seek. If I hide a cheque for £1,000 in your flat, and I tell you, go out the room, Andre, I'm going to put a cheque for £1,000 in here, you have to go in and spend some time to find it. So to find Jesus, it takes a bit of putting away our pride and reading the Bible. You'll never find out about Jesus unless you read the Bible. The Bible is the inspired, inerrant word of God, Andre. And if a person is not humble enough to read it with an open heart, he will never find the truth. The Bible is where we get information about God, creation.
What do you just a matter of interest, Ken? What? So obviously you read the Bible; it's an important part of your life. What do you do? Do you sort of jump into various bits of it? Are there favourite passages you have, or do you literally start at the beginning, go through, and then start again? And how often do you read it?
Well, we read God's word every day as best we can.
Right.
It's good to read through the whole Bible, but when you're first starting to read the Bible, don't start at Genesis, and you've got to go through a lot of heavy-duty stuff, which was given to the law of God to Israel. When you start the Bible, the best book to start, in my opinion, is the Gospel of St. John.
I agree with that.
And when a person reads the Gospel of St. John as a little child, Jesus said, except ye be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter the kingdom.
I mean, the good thing I will say about the New Testament is because it's fundamentally a collection of stories about Jesus, it's really accessible, right? And you can duck in and duck out very easily. I think you're right. I mean, attempting to start with the Old Testament, I just think you'd give up before you really got into it.
Yes. But you see, the Bible says it's the entrance of God's word that gives light. We have to be willing to receive it. But the biggest problem is, in my opinion, is our pride.
Yes.
Pride. For you and I to find the truth, Andre, we have to say, God, help me to find the truth. Jesus, this is a prayer for anybody who's listening. If you really want to get to heaven, Jesus, please help me believe in you. And then when you go to read the book of St. John, you say, Jesus, please help me understand this.
Ken, we've got a full switchboard. I'm going to leave it there. By the way, there's something very interesting about Ken. Very interesting. He's the guy with the sandwich board that you often see out and about in Westminster or whatever. This Christmas, more and more people are coming up to him and saying thank you and saying that they've recently become Christian. I think there is a resurgence of Christianity in Britain. It's an embryo at the moment, but I think it's going to get quite big. Let's go for Gordon in Great Yarmouth. Gordon, you're on talk.
Hello, Adrian. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, big boy.
Right, my question is, I don't know if it's true, but is it right that the legal migrants are going to be built homes to live in before our people?
Well, OK, so people ask about this all the time. There's a very simple answer to this. Once people are granted refugee status in the UK or indefinite leave to remain or whatever, then they become the responsibility of the local council. Now, in theory, the local council, recent migrants are not prioritised, but that is in theory. You have to remember, because of housing need, those people who can stay with relatives are put lower down the priority than those people who've got no relatives to stay with. And who are the people who've got no relatives to stay with? People who are recent migrants to the UK. So in practice, social housing is prioritised for people who are recent migrants.
Yeah, but I've heard on YouTube, well, it's all talk, is that they're going to be given, they don't have to pay no rent, they don't have to pay nothing, they're getting all free.
I mean, I don't know about that, but look, my knowledge is that in practice they tend to be prioritised, and I get very upset about it. Also, there's many housing associations now which do things like prioritise people who are non-white, prioritise people who are Asian, prioritise people based on their religion. I think all of that is pretty disgraceful. But the end result is this: in most cities,
because I've got a coloured foster daughter, so I'm not coloured prejudiced. And I'm not against the people living here now, because I talked to some of them. I'm against the people that are coming in and getting everything free.
Well, I will tell you my view, and it's a rather old-fashioned view. I believe that the houses provided for the poor should go to the poor of that parish. The people who were born in that parish should have them. And if there are no poor people in that parish who need the houses, then you're welcome to rent them out and take the tax, put it into the tax pot or whatever. But what frustrates me where I live is that 23 flats were provided for the poor of Windsor, and unfortunately they're going to recent migrants from Slough.
Yeah, well, if I had an hotel, I mean, what I would do, these hotels should now be boycotted. They shouldn't even, once they've got the migrants out and put somewhere else, they shouldn't even go to their hotels.
Well, there is a slight problem, by the way. There is a slight problem. The guy who owns Britannia Hotels is not a hypocrite. His family escaped the Holocaust. He is heavily in favour of refugees. He's heavily in favour of supporting asylum seekers. And if he was sat here now, he would say, yes, I've made a lot of money off migrant hotels, but it is my genuine view that these people should be allowed in the country. And the reason I make that point is I think it's really easy to bully a hypocrite, but this guy genuinely believes in what he's doing.
I see. Well, do you agree with all the people in Parliament? I mean, I watch it every time when they go to Parliament, that they should receive £320 a day. To me, that's not. I'm 81 years old. To me, that's not fair. My son's just lost his job, and they reckon there's jobs about. My son's just lost his, and to me, it's not fair. There are children with cancer. They've got the cure. I know that for a fact. It's all been broadcast. They've got the cure for the cancer, but it's too expensive. Yet they can give these footballers all this money. They can give all these top people all this money. They can give David Beckham money, and yet they won't give the money for the children.
Okay. So there is an enormous caveat here. First of all, when you're talking about people getting £350 a day, you're talking about the House of Lords. So in the House of Commons, they get paid plus expenses and staff or whatever. Look, for some people, £350 a day is a dreadful rip-off. However, many members of the House of Lords use that money to pay staff. So what happens in general in the House of Lords, you get your £350 a day, but you have to pay for all of your travel, all your expenses, all of your staff, everything out of that. It's not. It's slightly more complicated. But, sorry?
What about all the gifts they get?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no doubt that being a member of the House of Lords is a really cushy number. There's no doubt about that. But the one advantage of the House of Lords is because they give them £350 a day, at least there's not huge amounts of waste on staff, and also they have to turn up to get the money, and many of them don't bother, to be totally honest.
Well, I'll just say one thing. I won't keep you after this, but there are people who fought during the war. They're still alive, and they're living on the streets. To me, it's wrong. They should give them the houses, then give all our people the houses, British, and then sort the migrants out.
I totally agree. I believe charity begins at home. Thank you so much. Look, let's go to a break, and then I'm going to be speaking to Heather in Gavan.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, I have to say thank you so much for everybody getting in touch. Let's try and whiz through these calls because loads of you have called now. OK, let's go to Heather in Gavan. Heather, you're on Talk.
Well, there seems to be a lot of social injustice in our country, like victims like me who seem to be not being able to have our voices heard, and now I'm speaking on behalf of all the thousands of victims out there in the country, and we need people like me to actually speak out and represent all the victims who cannot speak out. Because the reason why I've been talking to you last night about the victims' rights and Phil Dave early on is victims in this country have been totally neglected.
Yes. I think it is worth reminding everybody that you very, very bravely and actually very helpfully began explaining that you were a victim of child abuse, that the perpetrator did go to prison for 6 years. You didn't feel that was long enough, but nonetheless that happened, and you moved away from Leeds in order to make a new start. Now, I will say something. You know, we have maximum respect for you for what you've done, but also for helping us to understand the situation. But you complain, as you've done tonight, about the fact that victims are not being listened to, and that child abuse still continues to take place, and the police are not doing enough about it.
I know there seem to be. It's like our voices have not been clearly being heard, loud and clearly by police, by social services, by the authorities at large, and it feels like when nobody seems to bother to care or listen, what we are going through ourselves and what we are enduring in our pain and suffering in our lives, that seems to be a problem when society shut their ears off, saying, oh, victims this, victim blaming that, and victim blaming others. They don't seem to bother to care about the victims. And the problem is with these scumbags, human rights lawyers, always seem to bother to care about these scumbags in prisons and their human rights and everything about why they're not... about the human rights element in prison and these prisoners. Yes. And these scumbags. They seem to care about them, but they don't seem to bother to care about people like us. We are having to live with this for the rest of our lives.
Absolutely.
We have given a life sentence.
Yeah. Okay, well, look, Heather...
They will come out of prison eventually.
Yeah.
And when they do come out of prison, they are not suffering with the life sentence.
No.
They can carry on with their lives. But the victims, we've got to carry this through all our lives. And it's about time that people need to realise that victims are having the life sentence.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think we should be much tougher with grooming gangs. Now, I've never done this before on my show, but Stephen, who has messaged in, I hate you. I want to explain why I hate you, because you are quite right. The House of Lords expenses system is more complicated than that. And in addition to the £350 a day, you can claim other expenses, including travel. The reason I didn't mention this to people is because in general terms, that doesn't happen. But look, it's kind of a bit more complicated than that. But in general terms, many people only claim the 350. But yeah, there are caveats. I do accept that. But Stephen, I'm correcting it because you're right. OK, much as that annoys me. Cliff is here, and he is from the Isle of Wight. Cliff, you're on talk.
Hi, Andre. Happy New Year, my friend.
Yeah, they've said that there are many cliffs in the Isle of Wight.
Oh, yeah.
The old ones are the best, aren't they?
Get it, mate. I get it, yeah. Happy New Year to you, my friend.
Happy New Year. How are you?
Not too bad, my friend, yeah. I was going to say to Joe, actually, that all I want to say is you do a grand job, mate.
Oh, yeah, thanks so much. I think the whole team have been... Look, let's be honest, this is not the A team. It's the more we're so desperate for money we come in every day over holidays team.
How dare you! What? Outrageous! Oh, my blimey.
It's team money grab.
Thanks enough, Andre. You do a grand job, mate.
Thank you so much. So what are you thinking about tonight? What's going on?
listen to the comments. I mean, I'm a big fan of Talk. I put it on early morning, and I listen to it all day. A little bit of GB News, but mainly Talk, mate, with the presenters.
Great.
And like an awful lot of people in this country, I feel like I'm living in a parallel universe, Andre.
Yeah, it's so unfair. And do you know what upsets me? It's the way that the good people are treated like they're evil and the bad people are venerated and put on this pedestal. I find it incredibly frustrating. And I know, and you know, that there are people watching and listening to this show who really struggle, go out to work every day. And do you know what? It's a thankless task. And they watch people on benefits earning more than them. It's really disgusting.
It's outrageous, Andre. This everything's gone topsy-turvy, mate, upside down.
Absolutely. Do you have a New Year's resolution, by the way?
Yeah, I do, mate. Yeah, get this government out.
Absolutely. Okay, now I will tell you that the next caller, is it Andrew or Andrea in Merseyside?
Hiya, Andre, it's Andrea.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm in Haydock, not far from where you come from.
Haydock, we love Haydock. Whereabouts?
I'm at the top end near the Ram's Head. In Haydock.
The Ram's Head in Haydock? I know the Ram's Head in Lowton.
Oh, no, not Lawton. I'm in Haydock.
Oh, OK, fair enough. What I was going to do is describe where my dad lived, but that's probably not a great thing to do. It's fair to say, I'll tell you where my dad lives. My dad lives on the St Thomas's Church estate in Goulburn, but I won't go more... I mean, that's pretty specific.
Oh, I know Goulburn. Yeah, it's not far from me.
Well,
really.
Goulburn's... I mean, the definition of Greater Manchester is the end of Haydock Racecourse. So that bit, if you like, on Park Street is Manchester, and then Haydock Racecourse is Liverpool.
Yeah, right. Well, I am just like this. I'm like St Helens side of Haydock Park. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, and thanks for a great show on New Year's Eve. I absolutely loved it. I really did. And your callers, I love your callers.
Oh, they're so good, aren't they? I will let you into a little secret. I've been out today. I have had to dig deep in order to do this show, but I'm glad to be here anyway.
Oh, God. I mean, what I've really phoned up about earlier, I've seen Yusuf, and this might concern Heather as well. I've seen Yusuf put a post out tonight about giving life sentences to criminals who sexually abused and rape children and stuff like that. How are they going to get these laws passed when the House of Lords is full of left-wing Labour peers who I don't think I just don't.
Well, so the answer to that is I don't know. But can I tell you what David Starkey has told Nigel Farage to do if he wins the election? That he will be called into the palace, and the King will say, Mr. Farage, I'd like to invite you to form a government, and for Farage to say, I'm sorry, I can't. And the King to say, why? And for him to say, whilst I command a majority in the House of Commons, there is no prospect of my legislation going through the House of Lords. The only way I will accept the Premiership is if you appoint this 300 to 500 people to the House of Lords today, and then I'm able to actually have a government. And then the King will have to, I think, appoint those people. I'm not saying that's what Farage will do. I'm saying that's what Starkey says he should do.
Right. Yeah, that's yeah.
And there's an important reason for that, by the way. There's an important reason. Because if he does that before Parliament sits, then it can go through without HOLAC. The House of Lords Appointments Commission will hold up every single reform peer for at least 2 years. So you've got to do it before they even get a chance.
Right. Yeah.
But the situation is catastrophic, remember. They will need 50 ministers in the House of Lords, and at the moment, they've got no members of the House of Lords at all.
No, not at all. I think it's a worry sometimes, and I feel as though don't go down that road where they're promising things, and then once they get in power, because I do believe Nigel Farage will get there. Once they get there, they're not going to be able to fulfil what they promised.
I think the significant problem is this: The number one political issue in Britain today is Nigel Farage. Every single institution, every single government body, every single executive agency is trying to work out how to make sure if Farage becomes Prime Minister, he can't do anything. I think that his government will be either sunk or it will swim within 1 month. And that is to say, I think he needs to go in with a legislative programme day one, and he needs to deal with everything. Essentially, get rid of the Quangos, deal with HOLAC, abolish this, get rid of that. And if he doesn't do it in 1 month, it's over.
Yeah, they've definitely got to go. Yeah, I can understand. Well, thanks very much.
All right.
Just said to everybody and anybody who's listening, go to your protest this year. Join at least 1 or 2 of your protests. I'm nearly 60 years old. I feel like I've turned into a revolutionist for my grandchildren.
Up the revolution. OK, thank you so much to Andrea. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Yes, this is Talk, and this is The Late Show, and we've got a voice note from Wise Lady. Take it away.
Hi, loving the show. I enjoy listening to Ken. The thing is, if man's ego was in check, then surely all religions would get on. And the thing is, how do you know if you're reading the correct version of the Bible and who thinks their version of the Bible is correct? Loving the show.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's always been this debate about the translation of the Bible and whatever, but I think, I'll tell you what I would say. I think in general terms, it doesn't make that much of a difference if the odd word here or there is slightly different. I think I would assume what Ken would say if he was here, the most important bit of the Bible are the stories of Jesus' life, and actually, the fundamentals are what Jesus did, rather than the specifics of the precise wording of a translation. I assume that's what he'd say. Anyway, I don't know. Let's go to David in Uxbridge. David, you're on Talk.
Hello. I got a really good innings the last time I've called you, and we like to get our ideas over.
Yep.
Those of us with ADHD, right. You kind of really want to tell the world about some great thing you want to say. I phoned into Talk Radio about an issue, and the penny dropped. The woman I was talking to, yourself and Alex and Kevin are doing a fabulous and courageous job.
Thank you.
And Ken. But anyway, I phoned in, and a penny dropped. I was explaining my present situation, and I'll not say who it is, but you can figure out who it is. She immediately flipped over to our responsibilities towards people from Afghanistan and so on, and the empathy was for the other. There's no kind of loyalty to the tribe, our people.
Yep.
And I've come up with the conclusion that this is a socialist mindset, and the two words, I would have put a title to what I'm actually talking about, and I would say the two words that would describe everything and all the problems that we're having in society is pathological empathy.
Yes.
Just doing us in.
It's important to understand. It's important to understand that if Keir Starmer was sat here now, he would tell you that everybody from every country, from every walk of life, from every culture is exactly the same, and they all have an equal right to the earth. Really, national borders are ridiculous, and somebody who is born in Afghanistan ought to have as much right to live in London as somebody born in London. He would also believe that the reason that people, behave badly, say in Afghanistan, the reason they're backward is because of the country they're from. The minute they move to the UK, they will become very Western. I think that is, and I'm just going to use the word dog shit.
Yeah. Well, basically the facility of the country, the things that we have created, the wealth and everything, and the utility and all of the things are being used up and used up and used up, and there's nothing left for us. Now, I myself live in a tent, right?
Right.
I'm in a 6-foot tent inside a 6 foot by 6 foot airframe cabin,
right,
in the woods, and I have survival skills which are off the scale.
Right.
Really off the scale. This is the 3rd year of doing this, and I save a tremendous amount of money, and I was able to buy a house in Portugal, a ruin. I mean, it cost me 17,000 quid.
All I can say to you is that
money saving, but the opportunity is not there for me to ever rent anywhere.
Sure.
It's just not there. In the past, I used to come back to England, stay in a hotel or this or that, the other, and it's just not there. And I get back to the UK, and I find that I can't teach anymore because the work's dried up. And I've been sitting around since September waiting for work. And it's just everything has been used up. My country has just been handed over on a silver plate to everybody else. Now,
absolutely,
I am not the most extreme version of this. I feel the ones I feel sorry for are the ones that don't have construction skills and they don't.
The people who can't fashion a bivouac in the forest.
Yeah, well, they are sleeping in shop doorways and stuff like that. And these people are going to start dying.
Yes.
I'm not. I'm actually very warm here. I've got it down to a science, you know.
But I think we can all accept that sleeping in a tent in a shack in the woods is, whilst one or two people might be happy with it, is not an acceptable situation for most people.
No, it's not. And but there is not an alternative for me. I mean,
no.
I'm heading off to the Philippines for a month to avoid the worst of the winter. So, I've had 2 winters where I went down to -5. When we go below 0, that's when it starts to get a bit rough. But this latest cabin that I built, this is cabin number 3, I think. Yeah, number 3.
David, I just don't know how useful this is to the average person, if I'm being totally honest. I mean, I salute you for what you're doing, but, I mean, most people living in a tent and saving up to buy a house in Portugal, I mean, that's pretty extreme, right?
Yeah, but I paid it off. It's paid off. I lived on boats while I was doing that, and I was teaching, and, I taught all the way through COVID and so on. And, I bought the house, I paid it off.
Right.
I've got a little piece of land in the Philippines, which is held in the name of my 2 daughters because you can't own land, and I can build a house on that. And I've got projects on the go left, right, and centre.
Right.
And I'm doing okay here. I'm prospering. As I say, you're not supposed. Ken Bassett, he said about Alaska, you're not supposed to survive out here. You're supposed to thrive out here.
Yeah.
And I am thriving. but that shouldn't be an expectation, you know.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, look, David, I mean, look, it's an extreme example, but I salute you for the following thing. You're saying that's what you're forced to do and you're happy with it, but you're also saying that other people should not be in that position. I think what we should do now is give out the number again, 0344 499 1000, and I think we'll go to an early break, and then that gives us a really good run at speaking to Roy after the break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
OK, let's get straight back to it. It's Roy in Hampshire. Roy, you're on Talk.
Happy New Year, mate.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, I just want to ask you a question. Well, a couple of points I'll put to you.
Yep.
When was it law that a prisoner that's locked up in prison for murder can sue the prison service for £240,000?
Very simple. The integration of the European Convention on Human Rights into UK law, which happened under Tony Blair in something like 1998 or 1999. Before then, a prisoner could go to the court in Strasbourg and potentially argue against the British government position, but the decision was non-binding, and also it cost around £2.5 million to go, therefore very few people went. The integration of the European Convention on Human Rights into UK law is what opened the floodgates.
So it's down to Tony Blair again?
It is down to Tony Blair, yes.
So Ronnie and Reggie Craig could have, you know, if they'd have had the law there, they could have sued the government for millions because they weren't allowed to see each other.
Yeah, and remember Levi Belfield sued he bludgeoned people to death. He killed Millie Dowler. He sued the British government because they wouldn't allow him to have a wedding ring at his wedding that they'd organised in prison.
Yeah, my nephew was on that case, mate. He was a copper.
Yeah, well, he's an animal, Levi Belfield. And what annoys me is I have never met anyone who is able to get a human rights lawyer to do anything. It's always the terrorists, the perverts, the murderers, you know, all the wrong-uns, the illegal migrants. Oh, they're awash with human rights lawyers. But when it came to COVID and they placed us all under house arrest, no human rights lawyer was anywhere to be seen.
Yeah, true, mate. Do you know last night you were talking about fires?
Yeah.
Like the Grenfell fire. Do you remember a programme on the telly? I used to be on the BBC, hosted by Raymond Baxter, Tomorrow's World.
I do.
Yeah. Well, on there, a guy came on there one day, and he had an idea in a block of flats.
Yeah.
If you could imagine a fireman's hose or a toilet roll, You had this great big roll of fireproof material on your balcony, and if it caught fire, you push your roll out, and it went into a tube, and you got in the tube, and you sailed down to earth or down to the ground. You might break your legs, but at least you've been alive. And it's never been worked on.
Well, do you know what? Do you know, it's funny you should say that. I didn't know about Tomorrow's World, but I went to Royal Holloway College in Egham in Surrey, and because the building was considered to be a significant fire risk, they actually used that technology for many years, and people had to practice of jumping out the window into those little, probably not as sophisticated as the one you saw in Tomorrow's World, but they definitely work.
Yeah, there you go, mate.
Unbelievable. OK, thanks so much, Roy. Let's go to Chris in Brighton. Chris, you're on Talk.
Good evening, Andre. Love the show, love Talk. Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, no, just on this, the whole social media for under 16-year-olds. Well, I've got two daughters, one at 8 and one at 12, and they've both got their little, their old hand-me-down iPhones.
Yeah.
And they're constantly on WhatsApp and blah, blah, blah. I'm a weekend dad. I'm divorced, but, it's all good. But I'm not over everything. Obviously, I don't know what's going on day-to-day basis. And my brother, my older brother, he's in his 50s, and so am I. He's on Instagram, and he's like, Chris, do you realise little one is on Instagram? And I was like, no, because I'm not on Instagram.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, Chris, he went, you've got to speak to her mum, because she's on there, and there's guys from America saying, take your top off,
Oh, no.
My goodness, honestly. And I was absolutely shocked. And then my brother said, I'm not going to tell you, because he knows I'm not on Instagram. And he directly rung my ex-wife up, and she wasn't aware of it, to be fair. And she's a good mum.
Well, funnily enough, I've got a good friend of mine who works for what is now the National Crime Agency, and basically he is a pretend child on social media and various websites and whatever. And he said, if you log on to loads of these websites saying you're an 11-year-old female, he said the number of 40-year-old blokes that'll get in touch. He said literally, we can't arrest them fast enough.
No, and like my brother said, it was like guys from like America.
Yeah.
And then saying, like, can you take, like little girls that wear a little vest.
Yeah.
I mean, she's 12, so she's not formed, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, sure.
But so they're like, oh, can you take your vest off? And my brother's like, have you seen it, Chris? And I was like, no, I'm not even on Instagram. And he's like, So I was absolutely shocked about that, right? So, but like that was put to bed. I mean, to be fair, like as I say, my ex-wife, we're friends. She's a good mum. She wasn't aware of it. And then obviously my daughter's just done it. She doesn't realise,
Of course she doesn't realise. And by the way, any child that ends up being tricked or lured or whatever, it's not their fault. I mean, these people are setting out to do harm.
Exactly. So this is my other point. Just as an idea. I mean, I'm not inventing the wheel here, but why can't these platforms do a child Facebook? Do you know, like an under 16s Facebook?
Yeah.
And under 16s Instagram, you know what I mean? Like, so do like a younger version, and then when you're over 16 and you prove your age and you can prove it or whatever online, however that might be, then you can go to the adult one. So you do,
bear in mind, Instagram, Facebook, and all them have the technology where you could get your account. And put your passport on or whatever. They can verify that you're under 16, and literally, when you log on, you could see nobody other than under 16s. It could automatically block out anyone who isn't under 16. You could do that very easily.
I don't understand why they don't do that.
Can't be bothered.
What are they gaining? Like, they're not gaining anything. And then they could promote, milkshakes and whatnot. I mean, I'm not stopping the advertising and whatnot, but like it might work in their favour. In actual fact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I've got to be honest with you. Teenagers are more valuable than rich older people online. I'll tell you why. Because they buy more stuff online than most other people.
Exactly. And then when my children, when I have them and they're on the, they're on the iPad or on their phones, and I always look over their shoulder. they're only playing games or
No,
they're
sure.
WhatsApping each other. They're not doing anything sort of terrible, you know. I mean, I've got 2 girls, so I don't know whether it's different for boys, maybe, but they're not doing anything sort of, you know, they're not up to no good, as it were. They're only like gaming and bits and bobs and chatting to each other and.
The big risk is it's the whole world, isn't it? The whole world's out there, so every weirdo's out there. In addition to the many millions of very nice people.
But the thing is, I've got some friends and that, and they're like, oh, don't let them have a phone, don't like the genie's out of the bottle, mate. You can't stop it. Yeah, and I encourage it because it's educational. Like, you know, my little one does like maths games. And stuff on her phone, and you can't stop it. Like, as I say, the genie's out of the bottle.
No, absolutely. But I have to say, what you've said is incredibly worrying. But thanks so much, Chris, for getting in touch. Stephen is in Glasgow. Stephen, you're on Talk.
Yes, Andy, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Fine, thank you. It's cold. The snow's landing in Glasgow at the moment.
Well, it's always cold in Glasgow, so I shouldn't worry too much.
Yeah. I was interested in the thing about the illegal migrants.
Yeah.
Glasgow's been swamping them at the moment.
Well, Glasgow, they often say is on the brink of some serious violence as a result. Now, I've not been to Glasgow in years, but is that your impression?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I'm a Scottish nationalist, but even the leader of the Scottish nationalists is not stopping us. He's welcoming them in. So I'll not be voting SNP again. I
get frustrated with the SNP because, you know, there's no problem with being a Scottish nationalist, but I get the impression with people like Sturgeon, she just likes everyone other than the English, and that's it. Like, there's no real patriotism there at all.
Once they started all this, like, agenda, you know, transsexuals, making on to get into your softest prison with women and all this stuff, it just turned nonsense. Sweeney's not any better.
No.
Too many left-wing zealots in the party.
But I get upset. Look, so I'm an Englishman, so I don't love my country. I love the United Kingdom. But I get upset because I think that Scotland is a great country, and I genuinely think it's been let down by a really bad government.
True. But my only argument with is Westminster. I think we should have their own parliament. I don't bother about the King. I support that because I regard him as the King of Scotland.
I think the big problem the United Kingdom has, let's be totally honest, we are all good mates, England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. The problem is, 87% of UK nationals are English, and England is so big, it actually causes problems for the UK.
Yes, and I can't... You know, I remember James Wales saying that as soon as this started to get a hand at the illegal crossings, the better was for the Royal Navy or the Coast Guard to stop it. What do? We welcome them with tea and hot tools on the beach.
Oh, it's dreadful. It's dreadful.
Albania and Eastern Europe. I mean, they all come to France first, isn't it? War. Why did they want to suddenly leave France to come to Britain?
Yeah.
Poland and Germany have woke up and they're getting tough with these Palestinians.
What do you think's going to happen to Scotland? Because I get very frustrated because I have no problem with them standing up for themselves, but it just seems like all they're interested in doing is doing down the English, and that you know, that has been exchanged. There's no national pride anymore. There's just hatred of England.
Another thing about the SNP is that, but I've always thought they wanted more oil. I would open the oil fields again in the gas field, but they wouldn't do that. They're going for the stupid green energy rubbish.
Yeah. I mean, Scotland with all of its oil going for green energy is just mad.
Whoever brought that in to stop the oil fields?
Absolutely. All right, Stephen, thank you so much. So, do you know what? We've got a couple of minutes left, but I just want to talk to you a little bit. Obviously, you and I have been together now for 7 years, and I'm really delighted to do this job, and I think that this channel goes from strength to strength. Don't claim we get everything right, but we get there in the end. Look, this is going to be a huge year for this country, and I just want to look forward to it. I want to say that it's absolutely vitally important that we prevent Keir Starmer from abolishing the local elections in May. It doesn't matter about the fact that there's going to be a new constitutional arrangement. The people elected should be the people negotiating those new settlements in the county councils around the country. I fear very greatly for this country with an end to jury trials. I feel that Keir Starmer is frustrated by the way that juries consistently rule against the police and indeed the Crown Prosecution Service when they attempt to lock up innocent members of the public on stupid things. I think that the juries are absolutely vital, and I think it's time for our Parliament to reassert itself. For years and years and years, the House of Commons and indeed the House of Lords has been nothing but a puppet to the government, and it's now time for them to stand up for their constituents. And the reason is this. I rebuke to everybody this concept that everybody has a right to live in Britain. I believe that Britain should be the home of the British. I believe that Britain should be majority British. And I believe that our history, our language, our culture and our religion should be the #1 priority of our King and our Prime Minister. I've previously said that I have no problem with anybody attending the Oxford Mosque. It is a great religious facility, but King Charles is in fact the head of the Church of England, and he must not be the patron of any other religious institution, including the Catholic Church, of which I am a member. Because time and time again, we look at the people who've benefited most in our society: the rich, the powerful, the titled. And what they seem to have done is something that's so different to their fathers and grandfathers. Instead of taking a seat in the House of Lords and seeing it as a solemn duty to look after the people, they see it as an opportunity to enrich themselves, to get their hands in the till. Those people who claim to serve the law but actually are getting rich by assisting terrorists to hound the police, those are bad people. Those people who are deliberately opening the floodgates to foreign criminals in order to make money, suing the Home Office 50 times on their behalf, they are bad people. If you receive a King's Counsel position, a title, a post nominal, if you are a knight, if you get any of these things, you should be thinking about how you can use that to make the country a better place. This country is never going to be equal. There will always be haves, but there will always be have-nots. And I cast my mind back to the First World War, where the haves were the second lieutenants who led men into battle. Yes, the death rate was appalling. The number of children from private schools who died in the First World War massively outstripped by percentage the number of people in state schools, but they were told, if you are going to have privilege in our society, if you're going to have a title, if you're going to have a big house, if you're going to have a great education, what you should be saying to yourself is, how can I use that in order to defend this country? Not, if I open up the floodgates, I can have a Lamborghini. Not, I'll get my hand in the till. Not that I'm going to start bullying ordinary people who've done nothing wrong other than misgender somebody who turned up in a frock with a beard. That is not acceptable. My prayer and my hope for